A new full-dive MMORPG has been released. For those who don't know, full-dive games just mean games that involve putting the player's whole consciousness into the system using most, if not all, senses. Do we have that in real life? No, not yet anyway. The game was called Iris Revolution Online, commonly known as IRO. Players can play the role-playing game while streaming their screen to the entire world. Most players begin at one of the starting areas. There were basically 3 initial places. When the game screen boots up, it welcomes the player to Iris Revolution Online. After loading for a few seconds, a world map is shown. Dividing the map are 3 areas: the Marsis Republic, the Wolst Kingdom, and the Grania Empire. Looking at the map, a boy softly exclaims to himself, "There was a small island far off the main lands and in the middle of the sea. On that island, peaceful waves crash on shore and the birds fly on clear skies." Someone shouts in joy. Looking at all the tall trees and life forms scattered about, the boy's eyes sparkled brightly to see that his start on an uninhabited island was a great success. The boy's name was Sho, a player who won the limited open lottery for IRO. He went through the whole map for hours, looking for a place to enjoy a slow life. Everywhere looked too busy and he didn't like it. Bringing your introvert self into the game sounds on point for a gamer, actually. Eventually, his eyes landed on the small island. After a strict selection process, he finally found a new land without a single person and where he could start a free and elegant life. Sho was impressed he found such a place. As he looks at the area, a band on his wrist lets out a soft chime, signaling a notification. He raises his arm and a game screen appears. Sho exclaims to see that he caught an unexpected lucky break. Written on the screen were skill points he received. He gained 10 points for his discovery of an uninhabited island, 10 points for first logging into the game, and another 10 points for being the first one to be in the island. Skill points were points needed to acquire skills, quite self-explanatory actually. It can also be used to increase stats. Even on an uninhabited island, there was a possibility of encountering enemy monsters. Sho wonders if his current equipment was okay. He goes quiet as he realizes that he had a beginner's dagger, beginner's boots, beginner's leather armor, and beginner's ring. He had no head armor nor arm armor. With horror, he realizes he was going to be hunted. You're on an island with no other humans, possibly filled with wildlife, and all you have is a dagger. You're genuinely cooked. With a sigh, Sho laughs to himself, saying that if he encountered something he couldn't beat, then he would have to run away for now. He would have to acquire the short sword and disassembly skills. Next, he needed materials for a hut too. His planning was interrupted by his own stomach grumbling, kinda odd that they could feel hunger in the game. Sho blushes, changing his priorities to looking for food. As he explores the island more, he eventually gathers papu fruit from the trees and acquires a throwing skill. Looking down at all the fruit in his arms, Sho figures he was probably going to end up living like a farmer. Something suddenly catches his attention and he looks up. In his surprise, he suddenly drops all the fruit in his arms. His eyes had spotted a rabbit. In the game, they were called bicobits, which were low-level rabbit monsters. But they look like any other rabbit, really. A player could also use them for their meat. Sho slowly comes closer to it, careful not to chase it away. He's been practicing his throwing skill a lot with the papu fruit earlier, so he was expecting some level of mastery. He starts throwing little stones at the small creature, however they all miss. The bicobit doesn't run away and merely frowns at the stray stones thrown its way in confusion. Sho gets tired after a bit, realizing that it was harder than he thought. Pushing himself to concentrate more, he steadies his throwing hand once more. Finally, his stone hits the bicobit square in the forehead and knocks it out cold. Bro just gave a tiny bunny the Goliath treatment. Sho exclaims in joy that he was able to hit it. Just as he does so, he gets a notification that his character level had also gone up, and he was now at level 2. Since he had leveled up, he was able to earn 5 points to put into his skills. He places 1 point each on dexterity, strength, intelligence, agility, and vitality. He leaves out luck, thinking that he didn't need to. Eventually, the day is about to end. Sitting by a campfire, Sho happily wonders to himself if the bicobit was cooked thoroughly enough. Rest in peace, little bicobit. Just got coated into existence, and now you're getting literally fried in an open fire. As Sho pulled the skewer free from the fire, he was thinking how, although he caught it, he still had to wonder how to cook it. He had earned a skill point for making a skewer using the woodworking skill to process a tree branch, got another point for building a hearth using the masonry skill to stack stones, and 1 more point when he used elemental magic to cast an ignition spell for fire. He smiles in satisfaction of his true survival experience. Brother is learning the ways of cottagecore living. Taking a bite of his skewer, however, he figures that the taste was still lacking and he needed seasoning after all. Food should be manageable if he kept going like how he already was. As he ate, he started trying to figure out where to set up his base. He opens his game screen once more and wonders if he'd be able to build a log house with a combination of woodworking and carpentry. However, to do that, he'd need logs, and to get logs, he needed the logging skill and an axe. He thinks about it for a while more before eventually getting up and stretching. For now, Sho decides on gathering driftwood and making a simple tent. His thoughts are disrupted by another notification chime. The notification says that a player named Mion had started watching his stream. Pretty cool that any player can automatically set up to stream their content the moment they have an account. Sho is surprised to see that his account was set to stream. The viewer Mion greets him in the comments, telling him that they were a first-time visitor to his stream. Sho awkwardly greets them back. He was careless. He didn't think anyone would come and visit him. Going to the streaming settings, he realizes that it was possible that they were on by default. Mion asks if Sho was on IRO, to which he confirms. However, Mion notices that somehow the atmosphere where he was feels rather different. Sho explains that his island was quite far from where other streams took place. He tells them that he was actually planning to end his playthrough for the day. Hearing this, Mion praises him for his good work and tells him that they'll come back next time. And with that, Mion leaves Sho alone again. Sho breathes a sigh of relief. Since it was almost midnight, it was time for him to log out. Remembering that Mion promised to come back again, Sho smiles softly. Tomorrow, he'll make a tent and explore the island after. He switches the game off and Sho removes his gaming console headgear. He sets the console over the computer monitor. On the monitor screen, it says that for today's streaming session, he had one visit from Mion. The next day, Sho arrives at school. Naoto Kashiwabara was Sho's classmate sitting behind him. Naoto, who was nicknamed Nut and who we'll call Nut from now on as well, turns to Sho excitedly and asks if he already started with character creation the day before. Sho tells him that he has already logged in. Nut laughs that Sho had spent another late night playing. Nut asks for Sho's character name and he jokes that he was called Yuta. Sho laughs at his confusion before saying that it's always been the same. Nut asks what starting point he chose from the three nations and Sho stutters. Nut exclaims in disbelief that the world announcement the players heard about discovering an uninhabited island was about Sho. Nut starts to wonder if he should recreate his character and restart too. Meanwhile, Sho feels slightly awkward that his discovery of his island was announced to the other players. Their conversation is cut short when someone calls out to Sho. He turns to find the class representative. She asks him if he was on day duty and if he's already submitted the class report. Sho stands up in a panic, apologizing for forgetting. He goes up to the front of the class saying that he might have left the report notebook on the teacher's desk. However, as he holds out a hand and rummages through the desk's cubby, he's surprised to find that the report notebook was missing. The class rep suggests that maybe someone already submitted it, particularly someone named Izumo. She says that Izumo was also on day duty with him. Although Sho awkwardly remembers that he hasn't talked to her much, he decides that he should still approach her to apologize. Later on, a girl is about to leave Class 1B when Sho runs up to her and calls out her name. Izumo turns around to find Sho breathing heavily. Clapping his hands together, he apologizes and thanks her for submitting the report notebook. He adds that he would do the report for second period. Sho says that they could take turns doing it. He only looks up at her properly when he hears stuttering. With a blushing face, Izumo lets out a soft yes before quickly turning back around and rushing out of the classroom without another word. She's so cute. The class rep suddenly comes up behind Sho and asks where Izumo went. Sho explains what just happened and asks if something had happened with her. However, the class rep just tells him that she was a bit worried that Izumo still hadn't adjusted to the class. Sho suggests for her to try talking to Izumo, but the class rep says that although she wants to, they never seem to get the chance. Not only that, but whenever she tries to talk to Izumo, she quickly disappears. After thinking about the situation for a while, the only thing Sho says is that the class rep would probably get to talk to her eventually. Thanks for the thoughtful idea, Sho. The class rep comments that he was so optimistic. Sho spends the night playing IRO once more, exploring more of his island. The next morning, Sho ends up on the train to school. The train is packed with people, some watching gaming videos of a virtual idol playing IRO. Sho yawns sleepily. He frowns to himself as he thinks that he's been playing IRO too much. As he's deciding to start going to bed earlier, he takes notice of the two female students next to him whispering to one another, and he finally looks up. The students were concerned as they looked at another female student standing by the doors of the train cart. Behind her, a large man was breathing heavily. That situation does not look good. Sho is shocked to realize that the student by the doors was Izumo. He didn't know that they boarded the same train. Not only that, that old man behind her was standing way too close, making Sho wonder what he was doing to a high school girl. There's a couple of possible answers to that, but the right one is most likely one of the worst. Izumo suddenly flinches when she hears her name called out. She looks horrified for a moment before Sho slides up just behind her, blocking her from the old man. Sho happily greets her a good morning before raising his hand and reaching for the strap hangers, effectively cutting off Izumo from the old man's perspective. Nice save if I've ever seen one. They spend the rest of the train ride to school with Sho protecting Izumo from any more dangers. Eventually, they arrive at their stop and get off the train. Sho quickly turns to her and asks if she is okay. Izumo buries her face in her hands and admits that the old man was sniffing her. Sho shudders and comments that the man was a creep. I second that statement. Rubbing away the tears that gathered in her eyes, Izumo thanks him. Sho tells her that if it ever looked dangerous, she could just tell him and he would help her. Arriving at school, Nut greets Sho with an unpleasant look on his face. With a grave voice, he asks him what club he joined. Sho comments that his attitude was terrible and Nut ignores him, choosing to call him a traitor. Apparently, he saw him flirting with Izumo on their way to school. Sho tries to tell him that that wasn't what was happening, but Nut throws an arm around him and starts shaking him uncontrollably. He demands to know if Sho was planning to join the romance club or something similar. Sho argues back that there was no such club and he was planning on joining the computer club. I'd be pleasantly surprised if the romance club was an actual thing though. Their banter is cut short when the doors to the classroom slide open and their homeroom teacher comes in. With a happy clap of her hands, she greets everyone a good morning and announces the start of class. At the sight of her, Nut flinches back with a blush on his face. Their teacher announces that starting today was club recruitment week, so the students should visit all the clubs they were interested in. The deadline for choosing their clubs would be Friday after school. As the teacher ends their homeroom period, Sho lifts his head to ask Nut what he was thinking of joining. Nut says that he would join track and field and would occasionally skip the period. Later after school, just as he said he would, Sho heads over to the computer club's room. Standing outside the room, he thinks how it seemed smaller than what he initially thought. He wonders if there were any computers since he was hoping to play IRO if possible. A computer club without any computers would be super funny though. However, maybe he was dreaming too big. As he raises his hand to knock on the door, it's slammed open, making Sho flinch in shock. A female student asks him if he was a prospective member. Before Sho could even get a proper word in, the girl takes it as a confirmation and grabs onto his arm, dragging him inside. The girl greets him excitedly, welcoming him to the computer club. However, Sho is struck silent. Behind the girl and standing at the far back of the room was none other than Izumo. What a small world for these two. With a grand flourish, the girl still holding on to Sho asks him how he liked the computer club. They had a whole gaming and streaming setup, whoa, complete with lighting equipment to boot. Shyly raising her hand, Izumo greets Sho with a soft smile. Sho almost cried in relief to see there was someone else he knew in the club. Meanwhile, the girl from before comments that Sho and her were in the same class. Sho is horrified to realize that the girl found out because she had somehow acquired his student ID. The girl finally introduces herself as Suzune Katori, a second year and the club president. Sho nervously shakes her hand, however, he stutters out that he might not be able to join the club. Suzune asks him why, and Sho admits that the activity fees seem quite high. I honestly didn't know you had to pay to be in a club. Suzune reassures him that it wasn't a problem. She explains that the activity fees were covered by school funding and money earned through club activities. Sho is confused how they earned through the activities, and Suzune gives herself as an example. Admitting that she was active as the virtual idol Witchbell, Sho immediately exclaims in shock. Asking if she was the famous streamer Witchbell he was thinking of, Suzune laughs and says that just proved that he didn't need to worry about the costs. Witchbell was a virtual idol who rapidly gained fans over the past year. She mainly did gaming streams. Sho couldn't believe that such a famous person was so close. No wonder they had a whole gaming streamer set up in the school. With an almost threatening expression, Suzune makes him promise to keep her identity a secret. Now that Sho was in the club, Suzune tells him to take a seat and she would get them some tea. Sho and Izumo wait patiently at a sofa as Suzune returns and places 2 cans on the coffee table in front of them. Grabbing one of them, Sho comments that the beverage was an energy drink, not tea. True gamer fashion to serve an energy drink, in my opinion. Suzune laughs and tells him not to sweat the small stuff. Getting down to business, she asks if they both had Wear IDs. A Wear ID was an identification number for computers and head-mounted display users, basically the gaming console they use to play IRO. To Suzune's satisfaction, both Sho and Izumo confirm that they do. Sho watches in fascination as Izumo puts her headgear on, surprised to know that she had one. Suzune tells them that she would send them friend requests. Putting on their HMD, a gaming screen appears in front of them using Real View mode. Real View mode allowed the wearer to visually project a gaming screen in the real world. With the friend request screen in front of him, Sho comments how amazing it was to have Witchbell as a friend. After accepting her request, Suzune tells him to send a friend request to Izumo as well. Sho agrees, but beside him, Izumo seems to stop short, a complicated look on her face. Suzune asks if there was anything wrong and if she couldn't send the request. But Izumo snaps out of it and says everything was fine. Sho is confused by her reaction, wondering what was wrong. For him, the exchange seemed fine. However, he freezes as he looks back at the screen, the name in front of him more than familiar. Suzune suddenly calls out to the both of them asking if they are done, and Sho and Izumo both flinch in surprise. Sho shakily confirms that they were all good to go. Suzune is confused by their reactions but brushes it off quickly. With a smile, she announces that they were doing self-introductions. She adds that during club activities, they would all use their display names. Both Sho and Izumo stay quiet at the idea. Finally, Suzune tells Sho to go first. Sho introduces himself, adding that he loved playing games like IRO. Izumo goes up next, introducing herself as Izumo Mio with her display name as Mion. No wonder they both reacted like that. What were the odds of meeting each other? She adds that she liked watching IRO gaming streams and that she wasn't very good at talking. From here on out, let's call them by display names. Suzune will be called Witch Belle or Belle, and Izumo will be called Mion. Witch Belle is pleasantly surprised to find out that the both of them were interested in IRO. Since she played it too, she suggests that they focus on IRO for a while. Excitedly, she turns to Sho and asks him what nation he started at and what his build strategy was. Sho is struck silent for a moment before he explains his story about his island. Hearing his tale, Belle exclaims in disbelief to hear that the world announcement about an uninhabited island being discovered was about Sho. Suddenly, a woman with sparkling eyes slides up beside Belle, extremely excited to hear of the really rare approach to the game. Belle exclaims in surprise at the sudden appearance of their homeroom teacher named Kumano. Belle asks her not to startle them like that, but Kumano only laughs and says that she was just excited about the new club members. Sho is surprised to find their homeroom teacher there. Clearing her throat to pick herself back up, Belle says that since their teacher had joined them, they should proceed with the explanation. She tells them that they should enter virtual view while they are at it. Belle asks Sho to lock the clubroom door. After that, they would switch the screen from the real view to virtual view. Belle advises them to close their eyes to avoid motion sickness. Virtual view mode connected all the 5 senses to the HMD, immersing the entire consciousness in the virtual world. Sho closes his eyes and in a few moments he finds himself in a different place. He looks around to find that everyone had turned into their avatars. Before him, Suzune was in the Witch Belle attire he knew. Witch Belle was glad to see that everyone had made it in successfully. However, kneeling beside her and clutching her head was the homeroom teacher. In the game, her name was Yata. Yata mumbles that she still wasn't used to entering virtual view. Sho wonders how she got such a realistic suit that's similar to the one she had in real life. Snapping her fingers, a large virtual screen appears beside Witch Belle and she welcomes them again to the computer club. Now this is a computer club I would love to join. She tells them that she was going to show them what their club activities have been like until now. On the screen, Witch Belle suddenly appears as she does her intro. It was one of Witch Belle's super popular livestream videos. As he watches the video, Sho is amazed to see that the concurrent viewers had exceeded 10,000 already. Even when Belle only defeated mini-bosses, donations and messages from the viewers came pouring in for support. Mion is just as amazed at all the fans Witch Belle had. Mion asks her if their club activity was to help her work. Belle thinks about it for a while before saying that the idea was fine, but she wasn't going to force them. She explains that it was originally a desperate measure to deal with the shabby equipment they had in the club. Yata adds that they were on the verge of being shut down due to lack of club funds, but Belle had turned things around for them. She earned club funds as a virtual idol, and eventually they ended up earning too much. Sho is amazed at how legendary of a person she was. With that, Yata says that help wasn't really needed. She suggests that if he wasn't interested in that, he could try other virtual idol activities. Mion cuts in a panic, saying that she wasn't really good at games. Belle remembers that Mion had mentioned that she preferred just watching streams, so they couldn't really force her. Instead, Belle turns to Sho and says that he should be the one to play instead. Sho exclaims in shock at the idea that he would become an idol, imagining himself acting cute in front of a camera. Belle reassures him that he would just do regular streaming. Sho looks bashful for assuming, but also relieved funny that he immediately imagined himself like that. Belle asks Sho if he also streamed his gaming sessions and asks to see his archives. Sho admits that he does, but his eyes wander to Mion beside him. Understanding that he was asking for permission, Mion happily smiles and gives her approval. With that, Sho summons another game screen for Belle and Yata. As they watch, Belle comments that just as Sho had said, he really did do everything alone on an uninhabited island. Yata is delighted to know that it was possible to play IRO like that. She asks if that was like a challenge run playstyle, and Belle answers that it wasn't quite like that. Suddenly, Belle notices a name pop up on screen and recognizes it. Seeing Belle's confusion, Mion holds up her hand and confirms that it was her, saying that she happened to find the stream. Belle is amazed that Sho's first viewer happened to be a classmate. Calling it an incredible coincidence, Belle tells Sho that at his rate he couldn't play with them even if he wanted to. Sho laughs bashfully. Yada lightly frowns, saying their situation was rather troublesome. Sho asks if there was a problem. Yada admits that they had too many achievements from last year and she wanted him and Mion to do something substantial as well. Damn, what a way to put the pressure on them. Sho understands where the problem lies. While his playstyle was indeed unusual, the actual tasks he did were quite mundane. All he did was comment on grass collecting and subdue some of the monsters. Suddenly, a stroke of brilliance comes to Yada, and with a start she suggests that Mion provide commentary on Sho's uninhabited island stream. Bell likes the sound of the idea, asking for Sho and Mion's input. Sho was fine with it, but he also remembers that Mion had said that she wasn't that good at speaking. Mion admits that she was a bit nervous, however she remembers Sho protecting her on the train and his promise of doing his best to help her. So with a soft smile she tells them that she wanted to try doing her best together. Sho blushes at her words, and with that they began their two-person streaming activity. Meanwhile, somewhere in the virtual world of IRO, growling and barking could be heard as a creature backs away. A large bear-like monster stood threateningly before a smaller canine creature. Back in the uninhabited island, a figure is hidden under a small tent camouflaged by leaves. A voice calls out to the figure over and over. Finally, Sho slowly opens his eyes to the sound of his name. Crawling out of the tent, Sho recognizes the voice as Witch Bell. Bell asks him if he was able to get into IRO successfully. When Sho confirms that he had, Bell gives Mion the approval to jump into Sho's stream and start viewing. They were going to begin with streaming practice. From Bell and Yada's perspective, they watch as Mion had set up her own stream showcasing Sho's live video. Sho asks Bell if she and Yada planned on coming into the stream. Bell tells him that since it was Mion's practice livestream, they would watch from the outside. She suddenly reminds Sho that in an actual stream, comments would be directed at Mion, so Sho needed to be careful not to say anything that might attract hate towards her. Imagining the scary look on Bell's face, Sho promises to do so before asking her to stop putting weird pressure on him since he was just a newbie. Yada suggests that they could just post an edited video of the stream. The announcement about discovering an uninhabited island was still a mystery, so a video with explanatory captions about starting on that island would surely be in demand. Sho purses his lips as he thinks about how he didn't have any editing skills. Suddenly, Mion calls out to him in a rush. Mion tells him to leave the editing to her. Sho thanks her for the support. Mion asks him what they were going to do that day. Checking his game screen for his goals for the day, Sho tells her that he was planning on gathering materials for the woodworking skill and heading east along the coast. Belle suddenly asks that since he was going for the woodworking skill to make a tent, she wonders if there was a sleep logout function in the game. Sho confirms that it was possible because when he woke up back in the game he was fully recovered. Sleep logout was the term for recovering health points in the morning when logging out of the game via sleeping. Normal players paid money to stay at inns because if they tried logging out while outside, they could most likely get robbed. Damn, even in a video game the public safety system was poor. Bell explains that people from the Empire tended to become very rich easily. It was one way to prevent inflation. Mion asks if he had any money and Sho tells them that he was penniless. Bell is surprised to hear this information since she had received 30,000 iris at the start of the game. Sho reasons that maybe since he received the uninhabited island, he didn't have the chance to receive any money. However, he was able to receive a lot of skill points and allocated them to skills. Bell notes that he still had 31 skill points left, and Sho says that he was going to be using them a lot from then on. He wasn't even sure if all of it would be enough. Yada asks if there were any skills he wanted, and Sho thinks of the fishing skill. He says that he thinks he'd be able to manage with worms as bait, making one of the girls comment that his idea was something a boy would come up with. Sho counters that his dad and grandfather had taught him a long time ago. Sho cuts the conversation short as he notices that they were about to reach the cliff. In front of Sho was the wide ocean, sparkling from the sun of a clear sky. Sho and the others watching his stream marvel at the sight. Belle praises him for finding a really amazing island. She asks him if he planned on starting on an uninhabited island from the very beginning. Sho admits that he thought it would be nice if he could. Before he knew it, he had already spent 4 to 5 hours searching for one. Belle goes awkwardly quiet and Sho realizes too late that she might have been put off by his words. Suddenly, Sho flinches and he whips his head around in a panic, looking around the forest. From their video call, someone asks if he had seen something. Sho turns on his presence detection skill. Sho says that he heard a sound. He decides on chasing after it for a bit. As he gets closer, he turns on his presence concealment skill as well. He crouches behind some bushes as he detects the sound coming closer from around the area. He peeks through the bush leaves. Sho finds a goblin. Mion comments that it was starting to feel like an actual role-playing game and Sho agrees. He frowns, wondering if that was all there was to it, so he decides on following its trail for a bit more. As the goblin walks through the forest, Sho follows at a safe distance. Finally, he stops as the goblin reaches its destination. As he thought, there wasn't only one. A whole horde of them had gathered. There were around 20 of them. Mion asks if he was going to defeat them, sis. His only way of protecting himself at the moment is throwing rocks at things and possibly the beginner dagger he has yet to use. Sho tells Mion that it seemed impossible to defeat all of them solo, so he was thinking of heading back. However, he does agree that he needed to defeat them eventually. He goes back to his small tent. Mion praises him for his wise decision and Sho laughs awkwardly, admitting that he was just nervous. Mion suddenly asks him why he wanted to play solo so badly. He admits that he just wanted to relax by himself. Somehow, when other people were around, he ended up being too considerate to them. Nervously, Mion asks him if her commentary was bothering him and Sho reassures her in a frenzy that it wasn't. With a happy smile, he says that although he intended to enjoy the game solo, he found talking to Mion fun. His words make Mion blush and smile softly to herself, glad to know he thought so. Hearing their conversation, Belle and Yada laugh amongst themselves with knowing smiles, much to Sho's confusion. Back in the computer club, their rehearsal ends and Sho takes off his HMD with a content sigh. Belle welcomes him back to the real world and tells them that since club activities ended at 6 p.m., it was about time for them to head home. Yada pops up behind Mion and tells them that they should all tidy up quickly and head home together. The rest agree. As they walk down the school hallway, Sho asks Belle how often she usually streamed. Belle thinks about it and says that until IRO started, she usually streamed twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays for about an hour from 8 p.m. Sho asks if her schedule now was different, and Belle says that since IRO was famous at the moment, she wanted to do it all week. But before she could say more, a hand roughly grabs her shoulder, making her flinch. Yada creeps up behind her with a terrifying expression and reminds her that she was only allowed to stream 3 times a week. She shouldn't set a bad example for the new students. Sho and Mion are struck silent by fear, as Yada tells them to be careful as well. Both of them note not to ever anger their teacher. In a panic, Belle bids them goodbye, saying that she had to prepare for her stream, so she was going ahead home first. Sho awkwardly thanked her for her good work today. Yada watches Belle go with a worried expression, but she turns to Sho and Mion with a smile and reminds them that those under 18 could only be on live broadcasts until 10 p.m., and tells them not to forget that. I wonder how they keep track of the players' ages when it's easy to fake your birthday online. Yada bids them farewell, saying that she was heading back to the staff room and telling them to be careful on their way home. Sho arrives back at his house. As he takes off his shoes by the doorway and announces his arrival, his younger sister crashes into him as she gives him a hug. The girl's name was Mickey, and when she pulls away, Sho comments that she was rather lively today, and Mickey answers positively. Sho asks if she was done with her exam studies, and Mickey happily says that she's completed them. He asks what she wanted for dinner, and she requests curry, adding that she's already purchased the ingredients. Sho asks her to clean the bath while he's cooking, and Mickey runs off to do her chores. When she's out of the room, Sho lets out a sigh of relief. Sho was currently living alone with his younger sister. It wasn't really a complicated family situation, but their parents had gone on a long business trip together, and that was that. Mickey took after their mother in looks and had a top-level intellect nationwide, but for some reason, she's gotten into the habit of speaking like a chunibyu, which is a Japanese term for people who have delusions of grandeur. I'm guessing she acts more like royalty in this case. As Sho takes a sip of the curry he was making, he wonders to himself if it was the price of successful education. Suddenly, Mickey pokes her head into the room and asks her dear brother if he had started playing IRO. Sho flinches in shock with how fast she had done her task. He admits that he has. Mickey's eyes are glittering as she looks to him hopefully. Sho says that she was a student preparing for her exams, and Mickey pushes that she wanted to play as well. Mickey proudly says that she was selected for the limited open beta, and there was no way she was passing up such a fortunate opportunity. The brother won an island all to himself, and the sister was chosen for the limited open beta. The family is just full of luck. Sho figured that she would be fine even if she studied a bit less. Mickey admits that she intended to go to the same high school as him, much to Sho's confusion. He tells her that she could afford to aim higher and asks if their father had said it was okay. Mickey says that she had persuaded him. Sho gives in and says that if she finds his character, then he would play with her, much to Mickey's excitement. Which is funny to say because he just stays in his island where I'm pretty sure no one else has access to LOL. Mickey laughs in content that she got his permission, but Sho just tells her to sit quietly as they had dinner. Sho logs back into the game and crawls out of his small tent. Even though they already did club activities after watching Witchbell's stream, he couldn't help but want to play. He laughs, resigned at the idea that he was going to be sleep deprived again. He suddenly remembers to set his settings where only Mion could view his stream. Almost instantly, Mion visits his world. Sho smiles in delight at how fast she had arrived. The two of them share greetings, and Mion asks him what his plans were for the day. Sho tells her that he planned on exploring the western area. Mion tells him to be careful and have a good time. With that, Sho was off for another adventure. He walks deeper into the forest and Sho comments that the current area seemed to have a lot of cedar and pine trees. Mion observes that the types of trees differed depending on the location. Sho says that it would be useful for building the log cabin. His thoughts are disrupted when his presence detection skill turns on. Mion notices his sudden change in mood and asks him if there was something wrong, but Sho stays quiet. He turns on presence concealment. He wonders what presence he was sensing, thinking it might be more of the goblins from the settlement before. He frowns and thinks that he might be able to fight a single goblin solo. Although he was a bit nervous, he pushed himself to move forward. What greets him is a pitiful canine-like monster trembling in fear. Both Sho and Mion stop short, not quite expecting to find it. Kneeling down closer to see it, Sho wonders if the small creature was a puppy. Sho asks himself what the puppy was doing in a place like that. But suddenly Mion calls out to him. She notices that the small creature was injured, a cut on one of its paws. Sho wonders if he could heal it using a skill. He summons his game screen and looks through the skill tree. Mion asks if there was something like a first aid skill. Sho says that there was and decides to also get medicine preparation and gathering. However, just as he selects them, the game tells him that he had insufficient tools. Mion says that it looked like they needed bandages and such, but Sho didn't have any of them. The puppy whines in pain. Sho gets up and looks around, hoping to find a possible substitute. His eyes land on small growing plants. He pulls on a plant stalk, saying that it would do. The plant was called Sasavechi. Sho kneels back down to the puppy and coos to it, telling it to stay still as he tended to its wound. After he is finished, the game informs him that his first aid was a great success. The puppy happily barks at him, thankful. Sho smiles as well, playing with it and glad that it was feeling better. As he talks to it more and calls it cute, Mion suddenly yells for him to look behind him. Sho turns around. A large bear looms over him. The game tells him it was an armor bear, an omnivorous bear monster. It was known for its extremely high strength and was far beyond the capabilities of an average adventurer. The game was basically telling him that he was going down no matter what. Sho felt a chill run down his spine, freezing in horror at the sight of the bear. He immediately picks up the puppy and books it, the bear hot on their heels. Mion tells him to run away, and Sho screams that she didn't have to tell him twice. Eventually, they safely returned home to Sho's base. I'm rather surprised he managed to outrun a bear. Mion worriedly asks Sho if he was alright. Sho is kneeling on the ground, breathing heavily. He says that he thought he was going to die. Mion is glad that he managed to escape. Beside him, the puppy whines at him, trying to catch his attention. Mion notices that he brought the puppy with him, and Sho says that he couldn't just leave it there. He wonders if it was hungry, and he looks through his items for something to eat. Taking out a wooden plate, Sho decides that it needs water first and hopes that it would be open to drinking. Sho waits patiently as the puppy sniffs the plate curiously. He smiles as it starts to lap at the water. Mion is glad it was drinking, and so is Sho. He's amazed that it felt like he was keeping a pet. He offers it a piece of meat. However, as the puppy tries to bite at the meal, Mion suggests for him to cut it first because it was having a hard time eating. Sho opens his game screen again and acquires the cooking skill to be able to cut it into smaller pieces. Now more bite-sized, he holds his hand out to the puppy again with the cut meat. The puppy reaches into his open palm and happily starts munching. As they watch it eat, Mion coos at how cute it was, and Sho agrees, saying that little ones were especially adorable. Mion asks him if he liked puppies, and Sho excitedly answers that he loved them, but he wasn't able to keep one in real life even though he always wanted one. The puppy suddenly barks at him. Taking it into his arms, Sho asks it happily if it was done eating already. As Sho pets the puppy, Mion calls out to him and points out that the puppy had a mark above its head. Looking at it closely, Sho is confused, but Mion suggests that maybe it was a mark that they have become really close. Mion asks him if he could obtain the taming skill, and Sho explodes in excitement to hear that there was such a thing. He quickly asks her how many skill points were needed to acquire it. Mion tells him that it seemed to need 9 skill points. Dejected, Sho says that other skills only needed 1 point. He thinks it was quite costly, however, as his eyes land on the puppy looking up at him with glittering eyes. Sho pulls it close to him and says that he couldn't afford not to take it. There's no way you can say no to that cute little face. Look at it, it can do no wrong. Kneeling down, he asks the puppy if it would like to be his partner. The puppy happily barks, its tail wagging from side to side, and immediately, Sho gets a notification that his taming was successful. Suddenly, the game tells him to decide on a name for the puppy. Sho is shocked that he had to decide on the spot. Mion hesitantly suggests that she had an idea for one, and she offers the name Rupi. Immediately, Sho lights up at the name, saying it was a nice and cute name for the dog. The game suddenly notifies him that he received an achievement called Pioneer of Taming, awarding him with 10 skill points. Sho is surprised to hear that he was the first one to tame a creature. Mion praises him for racking up another achievement. Sho bashfully laughs and says that things were just going smoothly. He says that it was all thanks to Rupi and he pets the puppy's head, much to its satisfaction. Rupi barks happily and Sho says that it was so cute that he could pet it forever. Calling out the game screen once more, Sho says that since he's gotten his dose of healing, then he should start doing some work. Mion asks what he was planning on and he answers that he planned on making traps around the area. Even if he did level up, it would still be dangerous if he was surrounded. It was preparation to counter the goblins. Looking at the game screen once more, it looked like there were 3 types of trap skills: trap creation, trap setting, and trap detection. Mion comments that taking all 3 of them would consume quite a lot of skill points. Sho thinks hard about it, agreeing with Mion but also pointing out that he just earned 10 skill points from his latest achievement. Finally, he decides to take all 3. Immediately, he wants to check out how they worked. In the southeast dense forest area of the uninhabited island, Rupi lunges for a bicobit. The moment he's in distance, he bites at its face and the bicobit lets out a shriek as it goes down. Rupi happily trots back to Sho with a content bark. Sho praises it for a good job, surprised that it could hunt as well. He pats its head as a treat. Sho gets a notification that he obtained the hide of a bicobit. Mion tells him that they could make leather straps using the hide. Sho says that he could use it for traps as well. However, for straps, they could also use specific plants. Sho takes a vine in his hand and says that he thinks a snare trap would be the easiest to make, specifically the one that catches and lifts its prey by the leg. If he gathered sturdy vines and thick branches, he'll be able to make it. As he's kneeling down to collect the necessary gear, the game informs him that the trap setting skill was available, specifically the snare trap. Sho tells Mion that he'll try setting up the trap on the tree near him. As he's setting up, Rupi comes up to him, wagging its tail and letting out a curious bark. Sho makes sure to tell it not to go near that specific tree and Rupi lets out a bark, a response that said it understood. A little later, Sho ties the final knot and gets up with a content sigh. It looked like it was set up nicely. Mion asks if it was for capturing monsters like bicobits, and Sho tells her it's possible it could capture other things too. Sho says that he would check again the next time he logged in. Next, Sho says that he wanted to make a flying disc for Rupi. Hearing his words, Rupi jumps into Sho's arms. It excitedly paws at his face, and Mion comments how happy it looked. Sho laughs, wondering if Rupi really did understand what he said. Mion suddenly says that she would love to keep watching, but she needed to log out for the day. Sho agrees that they should probably get some sleep, and Mion tells him that wasn't what all she planned on doing. When Sho asks what else she had to do, Mion says that during the streaming practice she was thinking of making a prologue video with the footage. Dang, they have a teaser trailer. Or I suppose a debut announcement for a new streamer. Mion asks what Sho thought about it, and Sho excitedly says that it was an awesome idea, adding that he was already looking forward to it. Mion laughs and promises to do her best. The next day at the computer club room, Belle, Mion, and Sho are seated in front of a screen as it plays Mion's intro video. They have a mix of reactions as Mion's voice welcomes them to the miracle of IRO, and how they've discovered the only player to set foot on the uncharted island. Completely amazed by the editing, Sho turns to Mion. He couldn't believe she edited it to that level in just one night. The video carries on, Mion's voice saying that they were diving into the reality of the solo player she discovered. With the video ending, she invites viewers to subscribe to her channel for the next video. Sho finally understood why she was so confident about offering her editing services. When the video ends, Mion nervously asks them what they thought. Suddenly, Belle grabs her by the shoulders and says that it was amazing. It was surely going to be popular. Belle turns to Sho and asks for his opinion. Sho excitedly says that it was even better than expected and interesting all the way through. Digesting his words, Mion smiles at him, softly glad that the video was well received. Sho freezes, blushing at her reaction. Belle turns to Yada and asks for her ideas as well, and Yada gathers her thoughts. Yada tells them that it might be a bit too long for a first video. She says that there was a lot of information, so they might run out of content for future videos if they kept it up. Sho agrees with her idea since they couldn't guarantee that they'd find new things frequently. Mion adds that it was better to reveal things bit by bit. Yada suggests that they should keep it in a more relaxed way. If they kept the same pace as Sho's slow life, it would be easier for both the viewers and creators. Mion takes down notes as Yada speaks. Sho watches Mion and thinks that she was the type to listen to harsh opinions without arguing. He thought she might object since she put so much effort into it. However, as he continues to watch her reactions, he notices that she looked a bit down after all. Yada continues that it was a special situation, so they needed to be careful about envy and jealousy. She suggests that they should also include some tough scenes too. Hearing her words, Sho thinks about people who would be jealous and realizes lightheartedly that there might be people like Nut. Trashing your friend in that way is peak friend behavior. It means you know them well enough. For now, Yada says that they should edit it to be a bit shorter so they could post it by the end of the day. Yata calls Mion over to watch the video with her, and Mion quickly goes to her. As Mion and Yata go over the video one more time, Sho smiles as he realizes that he somehow found himself surrounded by so many talented people. He thought he'd gradually increase his fans like that and start live streaming once he got used to things, or so he thought at that point, but eventually, the teaser video is released to the public. Players all over the game excitedly talk about it. One player asks another if they saw the video about the uninhabited island, surprised to learn that that was what the world announcement they heard about. Some players commented that Mion's voice was rather cute. More players talk about how they've never tried using production skills before. They thought Sho's experiences looked rather tough as he explored the island. Hoping that the videos were uploaded every other week, more players subscribed to Mion's channel. Soon enough, Mion had 187 subscribers. The next day, Sho and Mion are about to enter their classmate when Nut lunges for Sho and throws an arm around him. He greets him excitedly and tells him that he watched his video. Sho comments that Nut was so energetic this early in the morning, and Nut smiles at him smugly. Sho asks if he really did watch the intro video, and Nut says of course he did since it was all over social media. Sho is confused, but at Nut's words, Mion immediately takes out her phone to check. Her expression looks alarmed as she frantically whispers to Sho that the video had gotten really popular. Although the video had only been out for 13 hours, the video had received 578 comments, and Mion's channel currently sat at 43,741 followers. Sho couldn't believe it either, and he asks to see her phone. He's amazed to see that it was true. As Sho and Mion busy themselves, Nut stares hard at Mion. Finally, he whispers to Sho and asks him if Mion was the commentator. Sho confirms it and asks him to keep it a secret. Nut agrees, and Mion remains unaware of their conversation. Nut pokes at Sho's cheek, and in exchange for keeping his secrets, he wanted to know some useful tips. Sho says that he wondered if he had any to share, but since IRO was part of their club activities anyway, he would ask around anyway. Nut is pleased by his answer. Meanwhile, Mion watches their interaction for a while before turning around. Sho notices her odd reaction and asks if there was something wrong. Mion comments that they seemed rather close, and Sho agrees since they were friends. Mion walks ahead, not turning around to face him, as she reminds him that Belle had told them to come right after school. Sho watches her go, wondering if she was angry over something. Eventually, Sho and Mion head on over to the computer club. Immediately, Belle meets them by the hallway and ecstatically announces that something amazing had happened. Sho flinches from shock. He asks her not to surprise them, but Belle just asks if they've seen it. Sho tells her that he didn't and that he just confirmed that it was getting a bit popular. He worriedly asks if it was because of a controversy, and Belle reassures him that they were genuinely gaining fans. Showing him her phone, Belle tells him that it was even trending on Suzutter, which is most likely their version of Twitter. Mion suddenly cuts in, asking Sho if he could give her his Suzutter account. Sho tells them he didn't use the app, much to Belle and Mion's shock, saying that it was rare for someone not to use it. Sho explains that it was because he didn't want to run into any spoilers. Belle wonders if managing an official account would be tough, and Sho offers that Mion might be better suited for it. Mion tells them that she's only ever used a private account. Belle says that neither of them seemed suited for public relations. They see Yata approaching them, and Belle greets her on her perfect timing. Yata asks them why they were all chatting at the entrance, and she urges them to come inside to sit down and talk. Entering the computer club room, Yata asks again what they were talking about, and Belle tells her that they were discussing social media. She asks Yata if she knew about yesterday's video views, and Yata says yes. Belle suggests that now might be the best time to create an account since it's gone viral. Yata thinks about it for a while before saying that she thought it was fine not to use social media for the moment. Belle asks if it was because Yata thought they shouldn't increase their visibility all at once, and Yata agrees. She explains that the video content was mainly slow-paced, but Suzutter, with its rapid information updates, wasn't suitable for attracting casual fans. Belle is amazed to hear her analysis. Belle turns to the computer screen and says that at the rate they were going, they should be able to monetize soon enough. It was great news, but the tax situation could get complicated. Belle says that she would leave the use of the revenue to Yata, but they donated $5 million to the school last year. Damn, they're effectively stockholders for the school at that point. Thanks to their donation, they were able to upgrade their equipment. Sho exclaims to hear they earned $5 million, suggesting what would happen if they streamed every day. Yata reminds them that a student's primary duty was studying. Belle mutters to herself that she would rather stream than study. I mean, when you're earning that good, you could be set for life. Yata hears her and smiles at her threateningly, asking Belle to repeat what she just said. Refusing to look at her, Belle says that she didn't say anything. Mion cuts into the conversation and says that she had a request for Belle. Belle immediately tells her to ask her anything. Her desperation and relief is clear to Sho and Mion, but they don't say it out loud. Holding out a laptop, Mion says that she wanted her to check out their next video. Belle is surprised to hear that it was already done. She tells them that they could play IRO while she watches the video. Sho cuts in on their conversation and asks if it was okay for him to share his information about the skills he learned on the island to his friends. Belle says he was free to do as he liked, but Sho asks if it was really okay. He asks if the closed beta testers wouldn't get angry. Belle reassures him that even if they did get upset, they couldn't come to the uninhabited island in the first place, so it was fine. Belle adds that she shares some of the information she gathered in her videos too. Sho understands that by doing so, they'll be able to attract fans looking for walkthroughs too. Belle is glad that he got the point and reassures him again that it was fine to talk to his friends, but reminds him to make sure that they understood that as well. She urges them to start playing if they don't have any other questions, and Sho quickly puts on his HMD since students had limited time to play. He quickly logs in. Back in IRO, Sho leaves his small tent with a relieved sigh. He turns to his game screen and waits for Mion to log in. Soon enough, he's notified that he had one viewer. Mion greets him and Sho returns her greeting. But as he does so, Mion frowns. Mion points out that he called Nut without using any honorifics. She says that it was unfair and asks him to do the same for her. Sho, although rather shy, agrees to her request anyway, much to her delight. Sho wonders to himself why she suddenly requested something like that. He thinks for a moment that calling a girl without using honorifics was rather embarrassing, but as he's lost in his thoughts, something comes closer to him, its mouth ready to attack. Sho screams in pain. Mion asks in a panic if he was okay as Sho lay on the ground clutching his ankles. He reassures her he was fine, but he wonders what happened to him. A small happy bark greets him and Sho realizes it was Rupi. Picking him up into his arms, Sho says that he was glad that Rupi was doing well since he was a bit worried. Mion is confused by his concern and Sho explains that since he doesn't know what happens once he's logged out, he wondered if Rupi had somehow gotten attacked by enemies. Mion suggests that maybe if they made Rupi stronger, Sho would feel more at ease. Sho's eyes immediately brighten, calling Mion a genius and calling over Rupi to start his training. A little later, Sho spends his time guiding Rupi as he attacked more bikobbits. These rabbits are the true victims in this whole story. After hunting monsters for about an hour, Sho gets a notification that his character level had increased, much to his surprise. Mion congratulates him. Still at level 3, Sho comments that his progress might be a bit slow, especially considering which Belle was already at level 7. Mion reminds him that Belle was too exceptional to compare himself to, and Sho agrees. Opening his game screen, Sho decides to put all his skill points into his stats again this time. Mion asks him if he still had some points left for skill acquisition, and Sho reassures her that thanks to the achievements he's received, he had quite a bit to spare. Mion asks him if he was done for the day, and Sho says that he wasn't done quite yet because there was still something he needed to check on. Mion lights up, already understanding what he was talking about. They head to the trap setting location. A creature trapped is caught on the vines of the trap, shrieking to be released. It was a Sauron lizard, a lizard monster nearly a meter long with paralyzing venom in its fangs. Sho is ecstatic that he had successfully caught something. Planning to dissect the monster, he reaches out to grab the Sauron lizard. However, as his hands come closer, the lizard snaps at his fingers. Sho moves away, afraid of how vicious it was. He looks down to see Rupi growling fiercely at the lizard. He tells Rupi to go hunt somewhere else because he'll be fine. Sho delivers a harsh punch over the lizard's head, effectively knocking it out. Sho picks the lizard up into his arms, finally able to dissect it. As he starts working on it, he gets notifications of his character level and taming skills increasing. Sho is amazed that they all came at once. Mion warns him to check what he obtained first. Sho agrees since even the fangs alone were dangerous. First up was the meat. The Sauron lizard meat was muscular and hard to eat, so the player had to tenderize it with enzymes. Mion comments that cooking seemed challenging. Next up, Sho picks up a fang. According to the game, the Sauron lizard venom gland was filled with paralyzing venom. It could be used for medicine preparation, particularly an ingredient for paralyzed potion. Curiously looking at the fang, Sho thinks how it could be useful. Deciding to head back, Sho calls out to Rupi. Rupi turns back to him with a bright expression and a happy bark. Sho and Mion smile as Rupi runs up to them. Mion says that Rupi was strong and smart. Sho agrees and wonders out loud if it was thanks to the taming skill that he can understand what he said. Sho tells Rupi that it could go hunting if it was hungry, but warns it not to go too deep into the forest. Rupi barks in understanding. Since it was about time for him to head back, he curls up into his tent as he gets ready to log out. However, he suddenly hears whining and opens his eyes to find Rupi close to his face. He asks what was wrong and if it was feeling lonely. Rupi whines sadly again. Sho says that it couldn't be helped and reaches out towards it. Sho smiles at Rupi brightly and calls him over, offering that if they slept next to each other then it wouldn't be so lonely. Rupi's eyes immediately brightened. Rupi immediately dives for him, completely ecstatic, and Sho laughs from being tickled by its fur. Petting its fur, Sho tells it that he'd be back, so Rupi should be a good boy and wait for him. Rupi gives out one last bark of confirmation before Sho closes his eyes and logs out of the game. After returning home, Sho and Mickey sit in front of their dinner. As Mickey picks at her food, she calls out to Sho and shows him her phone. With an accusatory expression on her face, she asks if the player in the uninhabited island video was Sho. Sho pauses for a moment, unimpressed, before he reprimands her and tells her to put her phone down during meals. Mickey yells that she wasn't letting the conversation go so easily until he confessed. Casually continuing to eat, Sho admits that it was really him. Mickey dramatically slumps onto the dining table, saying that she knew it. She calls him a heartless fool for starting at a point where he couldn't play with his cute little sister. Sho asks if she really watched the video, and Mickey says that it was trending, so she did. He asks what she thought about it. Mickey says that not defeating the goblins but tracking them instead was a brilliant idea. She said that she was curious about what was going to happen next. Sho explains that there was no way he could win alone against 20 goblins. Not only that, he says that if there was a settlement, there might be special goblins too. Mickey says that it sounded like there could be extermination quests for those. Sho thinks he saw Belle doing an extermination stream. He wonders how to go about defeating them, and Mickey calls for his attention. Mickey smiles slyly and says that she had an idea. She tells him to lend her his ear so she could whisper her idea, and Sho laughs that no one was listening to them anyway. As Mickey tells him her plan, Sho thinks to himself that although she was noisy and cheeky, Mickey was pretty smart when it came down to things like this. She suddenly asks if he was even listening, and Sho reassures her that he was before reminding her that her food was getting cold. Back in the uninhabited island, a game screen pops up as Mion logs into the game. She greets him a good evening, but suddenly stops short. Mion comments that he was quite fired up seeing Sho sitting on the forest floors with Rupi, tying vines and rocks together. Sho and Rupi happily greet her back. Mion asks if he was building traps, and Sho says that he was, using carefully selected sturdy vines. Now that Mion is there, he stands up from the forest floor. With a determined expression on his face, he calls Rupi over so they could exterminate some goblins. Rupi lets out an excited bark in response. Waiting patiently in the uninhabited island, Belle announces that they were 5 minutes away from going live. Even though it was a sudden stream, they already had over 3,000 people waiting for the premiere. From 1 minute left and counting down, Mion lets in a nervous gulp as the last 10 seconds are counted. When Belle announces that they were live, Mion immediately wishes everyone a good evening. She introduces herself as Mion, the game mystery hunter, and thanks everyone for joining her. Watching the stream intro from his own screen in-game, Sho remembers how Mion had contacted Yada about them going on a goblin extermination quest. Yada immediately suggested streaming the entire process live. As the stream went on, Sho noticed that Mion looked rather nervous. Yada comments that so far, all the comments have all been positive. She tells Mion to pick out some interesting comments. Mion turns to the chat box. One of them was a comment from Seizuter asking how Mion was able to find Sho's video. She admits that it was purely by chance. When the game opened, she was watching various live streams, but Sho's screen looked different from everyone else's, so it really caught her attention. Sho is pleased to know that that was the reason she commented on his first video. Another commenter asks if there were any other live streams to watch, and Mion recommends the Witch Belle's Mansion, saying that she was a huge fan. Reading the comments, Mion guessed that a lot of the audience knew about Witch Belle too. Suddenly, she announces that she had a wonderful surprise for everyone that day. With a flourish of her arm, she shows the girl beside her to the audience, introducing her as a special guest that had joined them. Witch Belle strikes a cute pose as she announces that the commentary stream was about to begin. The comments start flooding in at her sudden arrival. She congratulates Mion on her first stream. She adds that she was looking forward to working with her today, and Mion happily thanks her. Belle tells their viewers that she was there to support Mion since she was new to streaming. She comments that it seemed to be quite lively already, but they had yet to switch to the main focus, which was the uninhabited island. With that, they switched the screen. Mion and Belle greet Sho and Rupi, who return the greetings with their own. Mion asks what kind of gameplay he had planned for the day. Sho tells them that he was planning on clearing out a group of goblins deep in the eastern forest. Belle asks if he was going to do it on his own. Sho confirms that he's already made various preparations for it, and Rupi barks in agreement. He urges both of them to get going straight away. Belle asks them not to push themselves too hard, and Sho reassures her that he would run if things got dangerous. Eventually, they arrive in the goblin settlement. Sho peeks out from a bunch of bushes. From what he could see, there were 3 lookouts and 1 in the center. The rest of the goblins were probably in the back of the cave. Sho turns on his presence concealment skill. With his current skill activated, the goblins shouldn't even hear any notice. He picks up a nearby rock. He throws it as hard as he could at one of the goblins, taking out the first one as it's hit on the face. Sho pumps his fist in victory. which Bell and Mion commend him for his excellent throwing, saying that it was the result of training with Rupi. After that, Sho deactivates the presence concealment skill. Immediately, the goblins take notice of him and the fallen goblin. Deliberately letting the others notice and having them rush towards him was part of Sho's plan. When they're close enough, he counterattacks by throwing more rocks at them. Sho calls out to Rupi as a figure comes out of the cave. Sho and Rupi run, but he warns Rupi to slow down a bit. Sho turns around to check their pursuers. They had managed to lure out the ones from the cave too. Bell and Mion provide commentary saying that Sho was deliberately running at a pace the goblins could keep up with and wondering what he would do next. They knew for now that Sho would want to disperse their forces. Suddenly, Sho picks up Rupi, much to the puppy's surprise. Next, Sho activates his presence concealment skill and ducks behind a large boulder. The goblins pause, unable to find him. Sho laughs at the foolish goblins, unable to find them even when they were so close by, and Rupi agrees. Suddenly, the goblins are alerted when they hear the bushes behind them begin to rustle. The goblins scream in fear as multiple lizard-like creatures spring out from the bushes and right into their group. Sho laughs mischievously as he watches the goblins be completely fooled by his trap, all of them now scrambling as the Sauron lizards attack them. Bell and Mion now understand that Sho had set up a Sauron lizard trap. Thanks to that, the goblins had all scattered. Mion asks Bell what she would do after that situation if it was her. Bell says that she would want to take out the ones heading back to the plaza in one go since it would be troublesome if they returned to the cave. Sho lowers Rupi back to the ground as he stands up and peeks around the boulder. He agreed with Witch Bell's strategy, thinking that the goblins going back to the cave would be the biggest hassle. But he's already set up his next move. He watches as the goblins all walk back to the direction of the cave. Just as they step on a pile of leaves, a sturdy vine wrapped around the trunk of a tree is pulled tight, and Sho makes his move. Using the sharp edge of a rock, he cuts at the outstretched vine. The goblins are surprised when the ground beneath them starts to elevate. Before they could even react, the goblins are sent flying into the air, disappearing into the distance. Sho yells, ecstatic with his victory. He had set up a trap by attaching Flex Sasa bamboo to trees. When the goblins stepped on it, cutting the connected vines launches them with the recoil. Back to Mion and Witchbell, Mion is in awe at the incredible power it took to fling the goblins. Witchbell also praises him for his amazing strategy. If he couldn't win by brute force, then he could win with his traps. She finally understood why he was so confident. Sho laughs bashfully, saying that he put a lot of thought into it, internally adding that most of the thinking was done by Mickey. Sho suddenly gets a notification that his trap disarming skill has increased. Sho is pleased with how things were going smoothly. Suddenly, Rupi lets out a loud bark and Sho turns around. Sho is met by the sight of fireballs aimed right at them. He's only frozen in shock for a moment before he dives straight for Rupi. He envelops the puppy in his arms as the fireballs rain down around them. He grits his teeth from the heat of an attack hitting him. Bell and Mion call out to him in worry. Mion asks Bell if Sho's character was going to die, and Bell reassures her that it was going to be okay since he still had 1 health point left, and there weren't any follow-up attacks. Sho slowly gets up and asks a teary-eyed Rupi if it was hurt. Wondering where the attack came from, Sho turns back to the cave entrance. Coming out of the cave was a goblin leader, a large goblin that led a group of goblins and swept away its surroundings with tremendous strength. Behind it was a goblin magician, a goblin skilled in various magic spells and specializing in long-range combat. Sho stares in horror at the monsters, clutching Rupi close to his chest. The goblin leader was bigger than the rest. The leader lunges for them and swings its gigantic club at them. Its weapon crashes to the ground just a distance away from where Sho lies on the ground. Seeing the situation getting worse, he quickly turns to Rupi and tells it that they needed to retreat. But just as he does so, the goblin magician laughs as it summons more fireballs. Sho and Rupi jump out of the way, trying to shield themselves from the attacks coming their way. They didn't even have time to rest. Sho suddenly hears growling, and he looks down to check if Rupi was okay. To his surprise, he sees Rupi bound for the monsters. Sho yells after it, saying that it was impossible and that it can't do it alone. However, Sho pauses for a moment. The enemy's attention was still on Rupi. Taking out his dagger, he saw his chance. He throws it with his skill, sure that they would be able to do it. The dagger is buried deep into the back of the goblin leader's neck. It slowly reaches for the weapon in confusion before the pain sinks in. The goblin magician yells in horror as the goblin leader's body falls over it. Witchbell and Mion are amazed that he was able to defeat it, but they comment that the way the leader fell was strange. They ask Sho what exactly happened. A game screen notifies them that the goblin leader was paralyzed for about 4 minutes until recovery. Sho celebrates that his plan had worked. He was glad he coated the dagger with Sauron lizard venom beforehand. Rupi happily runs up to him. Sho raises Rupi into his arms, ecstatic that it was able to do it, much to the puppy's delight. Going back to the goblin leader's body, Sho takes the dagger and stabs at them again to finish them off. With that, they had achieved complete victory. A game screen notifies them that Sho had cleared out the goblin settlement. A safe zone had been added. A safe zone was a safe area where enemy threats couldn't reach. Bell and Mion celebrate his victory with him. Sho thinks that although it said that a safe zone was added, he wonders what was deep inside the cave. He wanted to explore it later. He snapped out of his daze when he hears Mion and Bell calling out for his name. He turns to the game screen in a rush. They ask if he could finally hear them, glad that he was able to respond because they thought the connection might have been cut. Again, they praise him for his good work. He laughs bashfully and thanks them, but internally he forgot for a moment that they were still streaming. Bell and Mion praise him for being incredible and his perfect trap usage. Mion's eyes sparkled to see that their concurrent viewers had increased to 10,000. The comments come pouring in saying that his knife throw was awesome and calling him a real hunter. Mion says that there were a lot of questions in the comments and she asks if it was okay for her to read them out. Sho agreed as long as he could answer them. However, his eyes drift over to the goblin leader's body in the corner. Sho asks Mion if they could change locations, implying that the mood there wasn't quite great. Mion agrees, adding that she would summarize the comments as concisely as possible. Sho points over to a group of flat rocks and he calls Rupi over. Sho sits down cross-legged with Rupi on his lap. Mion asks Bell to ask the questions while Sho pets Rupi, the puppy very satisfied. Bell says that they wanted to know how he defeated the goblin leader, and so on that day there were more than 10 times the questions he imagined. The question and answer session lasted until 10 p.m., which was the very limit of streaming time for minors. Unbeknownst to Sho and the rest, deep within the goblin cave lay an engraved door. The next day at school, Nut leans over Sho's table. Excited, he says that yesterday's stream was amazing and a huge success. Sho asks if he watched the stream and Nut says that of course he did. Nut says that everyone in the Empire was watching the stream too. Sho is in disbelief that he seemed like he was getting more attention than he expected. The class representative suddenly cuts in, saying that it was obviously because no one knows anything about the uninhabited island. The boys ask her if she knew about IRO too. Slightly blushing, she hesitantly admits that she did and that she watched the stream. The game had looked interesting, so she looked into it. Nut suddenly leans over to Mion and in a whisper asks whether she was the one doing the commentary with Witchbell. Before Mion can say anything, the class rep asks her in a frenzy if it was true, and if Sho had threatened her. Kind of funny that she's almost implying that Sho held her at gunpoint or something just to commentate on a stream about farming. Sho cuts her off, saying that that wasn't the case at all. Sho explains that they were doing it together as part of their club activities. Sho adds for her not to scare Mion so much. The class rep apologizes, saying that she just got worried. Mion smiles softly, her cheeks slightly red as she thanks everyone for their concern. Mion tells them that she was glad that both Nut and the class rep enjoyed the stream. She admits that at first she was nervous about live streaming. Nut says that she seemed to be talking pretty well and the class rep backs him up by saying that she was amazing considering how many viewers there were. Suddenly noticing Sho, the class rep asks why Sho looks so proud. We love a supportive friend/streaming buddy in this chat. Nut suddenly lets out a heavy sigh, saying that she was jealous. He explains that in the Empire, the only thing the NPCs or the non-playable characters talked about were ominous things, particularly something about civil unrest. Nut's voice sounds annoyed. The class representative is confused, saying that that kind of thing would be fun. Nut is glad that the class rep understood what he wanted to say. Nudging the class rep with his elbow, Nut asks why she doesn't start playing the game too. She defends herself, saying that she wasn't used to playing with strangers. Nut continues to push her, saying that she could just play in the same area as him. He would even help her with character creation. Watching them, Sho thinks that the both of them got along rather well. The class rep asks whether the characters could use bows or magic, and Nut reassures her that she could. He adds that players could even choose races now, and that he thinks the elf race would be perfect for her. The class rep is surprised by his words. Nut, with an oblivious grin, says that elves were usually beautiful with smaller chests. I want to know his thought process that made him think that was a good thing to say. The class representative's expression goes stone cold, and not long after, the sound of a slap echoes through the class. After school, Sho slips the HMD back over his head, and not before long, his character appears by the goblin cave. In a little while, Mion enters the stream. Sho starts listing out his plans for the day, saying that since they spent a lot of time answering questions last time, he suggests that maybe they should proceed further into the cave they couldn't reach before. In front of Sho and Rupi was the looming entrance of the goblin cave. Mion asks him if he wasn't going to check the loot he got from last time. Sho freezes, saying that he completely forgot before opening his bag. Inside was a small magic stone, a tiny magic stone, a dirty robe that provided +1 in defense, and finally a beginner's spellbook. Sho was excited at the thought that he could use some magic. He opens the book to find spells like Fireball, Stone Bullet, and others mostly used for combat. Some other spells were Earth Wall and Stone Wall that he might also be able to use in battle. With glittering eyes, he calls Rupi over and they head over to the cave. Walking deeper in, Mion asks Sho if it was really okay for them to burn the robe. Sho reassures her that it was fine and that using it as a torch would be more worthwhile. He looks around the cave and says that it didn't seem like there were any enemies yet. He's suddenly alert when they come to a wide space. He wonders if it was a safe zone. Mion calls out to him saying that there was a door in the back left of the cave. The game notifies Sho that it was an ancient magic door, a door sealed by ancient magic. Noticing its intricate design, Mion observes that the door doesn't seem to fit the cave. Mion asks Sho what ancient magic was, and Sho says that when he looks it up, he could only find elemental magic, spirit magic, and holy magic. Raising his hand, he says that they wouldn't know unless they tried to open it. Just as he tries to push it open, a game screen appears before him, saying that access was confirmed for the one who has received the blessing. It asks him to confirm if he wanted to unlock the door, and hesitantly, Sho says yes. Immediately the door swings open. Descending a flight of stairs, Sho enters a wide room and the game announces that he had discovered ancient ruins. Sho's eyes sparkle as he realizes that the new area that was open to him was a workshop. It had everything needed: a hearth, a furnace, and even a workbench. Kneeling to check the equipment, Sho was quite happy about the furnace. If they had some ore on hand, they could work with metal. Mion suggests that they appraise everything first. Sho agrees with her, adding that he should get the smithing and mining skills as well. The game notifies Sho that the ancient magic furnace was used in ancient times. It maintains high temperatures by infusing mana points instead of using firewood. The smithing skill transforms ore into ingots. Sho is amazed to hear that it ran by consuming mana points. He heard that someone would need money to use production facilities in town, or so he saw in one of Witchbell's streams. Mion suggests that the specs must have been changed to accommodate the uninhabited island. Sho agrees, but he adds that he didn't think it was that special a feature, which is really funny to say when your whole island sounds like a cheat code. Mion says that in the uninhabited island, an adventurer could use it as much as they wanted since mana points recovered automatically when logging out to sleep. Meanwhile on the mainland, an adventurer would need recovery items. Sho agrees with Mion, however suddenly he notices Rupi acting odd. He follows Rupi as it seems to motion to something next to the hearth. There was a box with certain handheld tools inside. Sho finds scissors, a hammer, and a chisel among them. They've got most of what they needed already. However, Sho noticed that the tools didn't look new. He stands back up and looks all over the cave, now sure that it was a smithing workshop. Turning to a corner of the cave, he finds a door and says that he thinks it should connect to the corridor they were in earlier. Mion agrees, saying that it should be about where the corridor turned left. Sho heads over to the door, and when prompted by the game to open it again, he confirms it. The door swings open and looking around, Sho is sure that it really was a continuation of the corridor. The cave corridor stretches further inside and Sho frowns. He wonders how far the path went and if there might be monsters. It was a bit scary. However, Rupi suddenly barks happily, much to Sho's surprise, and Rupi takes the lead of their exploring. Sho thought that having Rupi around was rather reassuring. As they keep walking, Sho comments that they were in quite the long path. Rupi barks and turns to Sho as they find a flight of stairs. Following them, he comes across another large door. Mion observes that there was no handle on the door. Sho agrees, coming to the conclusion that the door opened from the other side. They needed to find some kind of trigger. Deciding to deal with that problem later, they decide to go down the right side. Reaching the last step of the stairs, Sho is suddenly surrounded by so much light seemingly coming from the very walls. He looks around in awe. Both he and Mion express their amazement at the beautiful sight. Looking down at their glowing surroundings, Sho wonders if it was all moss. He kneels down and takes some of them into his hand to examine. According to the game, it was light moss, essentially moss that absorbs mana points and causes them to glow. Sho is confused that that was all there was to them. He wonders if it had any relation to cooking or medicine preparation. I get the medicine prep possibility, but I think glowing food is still a little too advanced for their world. Sho decides that since the moss was so pretty, he wanted to transplant it into their new base. Mion agrees, saying that it was a good idea. Sho wonders what skill he would need to do just that, thinking it might have something to do with agriculture. Mion suggests gardening and Sho agrees. He skipped the easiest one and immediately went for agriculture. Rupi suddenly barks to catch Sho's attention and Sho turns around. Rupi smiles triumphantly as it points to a pile of rocks. The game notifies Sho that the rocks were actually ore. Their discovery makes Sho exclaim. If they could extract it, they should be able to process it in the workshop they just found. However, he remembers that they didn't have the proper mining tools. He takes out what he currently had, a rusty knife and an old hammer he picked up a while back. Sho picks up Rupi, much to the puppy's confusion, as he tells it that it was going to be dangerous. He orders it to stay back and tells it that he would do his best. Using his tools, Sho makes quick work of the material until finally he gets what he wants. Eyes sparkling in victory, Sho held iron ore in his hands. It was a stone that served as the raw material for iron. Using the smithing skill can let it be processed into iron products after being made into ingots in a furnace. Mion is amazed by his successful task. Sho expresses that it was quite difficult harvesting ore when all he had was a knife and a hammer, kinda more impressed that he was able to do it anyway. Mion asks him if he needs a pickaxe. Sho agrees with the need for a pickaxe, adding that they needed to move their base to the cave. As Rupi played with the spare ore lying around, Sho laughs and says that he liked the cave. Still, he thinks that although there shouldn't be anyone on the uninhabited island but him, there were traces of someone being there. Since the game was just released, there shouldn't be any existing players before him. He decides to investigate other areas next time. Back in the computer club room, Sho stretches his body as relief from his exhaustion. They made quite the progress that day. Mion praises him for his good work. Suddenly, the clubroom door slid open, much to Sho and Mion's surprise. It was Belle, and Sho asks her where she's been. Belle happily informs them that she was submitting a proposal. Sho is confused, but Belle explains that it also concerned both him and Mion as part of their club activities from then on. With an excited look on her face, she announces that they were going to form a guild. Sho and Mion stare at her in shock. Their shock is understandable. Sho wanted to play solo, that's why he was on an empty island, and Mion wasn't really into talking to other people. There's a heavy silence in the clubroom as Sho and Mion repeat Belle's words. With a proud grin, Belle confirms that she was serious about the guild idea. She says that she usually works in teams, but if the club created a players guild with their companions, she thought it would be convenient for gathering materials and funds. Sho and Mion can only stare at her, dumbstruck. Mion raises her hand and hesitantly asks how they were going to make one. Belle pulls out her phone and tells them that later that night, IRO's official channel would be doing a live stream explaining the new update. Apparently, they'll also be introducing how to create a players guild during the stream. Belle tells them that she planned on watching it. She asks if Mion and Sho were planning on logging in after returning home that day as usual, and the two confirm excitedly. Belle praises them for their enthusiasm before suggesting that they all watch the stream together by meeting in the virtual clubroom. Sho suddenly cuts in, wanting to ask a question to Belle. He asks if he could invite his sister along. Mino is shocked. With an almost disgusted look on her face, Belle asks him why. Sho quickly defends himself, saying that he wasn't a siscon or anything similar. Siscon is a Japanese term for sister complex, which is someone who has a very intense attachment to their sibling. But Belle says that she would hear him out first before deciding. Sho explains that his sister also played IRO and she was planning to watch the explanatory stream with him, going so far as to nag him while they were at home last night. Belle comments that they were rather close before saying that she didn't see any reason to refuse. She agrees to have her on board and reminds them to gather before the stream starts. She turns to leave but makes sure to tell Mion to prepare to greet Sho's sister. Mion's face goes completely red as she tries to stutter out a reply, but before she can get a word in, Belle bids them goodbye and is out the door. Later on in the virtual clubroom, Witch Belle, Yada, and Mion are all ready to watch the live stream. Belle suddenly looks up as Shu arrives, greeting him. Mion and Yada look up to see Sho and a smaller figure beside him. Miki introduces herself to them as Sho's younger sister and her in-game name as Sesu. As customary, we'll be referring to her as Sesu from here on out. With a bright smile, Sesu greets all of them warmly. Belle immediately takes a liking to her, calling her a polite child. However, Sho notices that Sesu was using her usual act innocent mode. He finally turns to her and says that there was no need to be so formal since she wanted to join the club next year. Anyway, Sesu thinks about his words for a moment, agreeing with the idea. In the next second, Sesu's innocent act completely vanishes and is replaced by a stronger personality as she calls out to everyone and says that she looked forward to working with them today. The sudden and extreme shift in personality catches them all off guard, especially Belle. She turns to Sho and says that Sesu was quite the unique character. Sho looks almost embarrassed, but reassures her that Sesu wasn't a bad person. Their conversation is cut short when a voice over the speakers start testing their microphone and thanks everyone for waiting. Belle turns to the screen as the live stream starts. On the screen, two girls lead the event. One of them introduces herself as Choco, the GM supervisor and the main host. The girl beside her, Misha P, would be the commentator and the general producer. As Misha shyly greets everyone watching, Sho and the others comment that it was unusual that the supervisor looked so young. Choco then continues and says that without further ado, they were going to start explaining the updates. First things first, they announced that players could now officially create guilds on their own. Until now, only the Adventurers Guild could issue quests, but things were different now. Material gathering, monster subjugation, and hiring necessary manpower and accepting could now be done between individuals. Choco says that starting a guild required 10 platinum coins, 10 million iris, and above all, a recommendation letter from a noble. At her words, Witch Belle has a gloomy look on her face as she repeats their need for a noble's recommendation letter. As the comments flood in, Choco says that they were going to start taking some questions. First up, someone asks what ancient ruins were. Choco says that it just came through in a world announcement, and Misha comments that although she knew they would find such ruins here and there eventually, she didn't think they would be found earlier than expected. Sho freezes, unaware that his discovery of the ruins had been announced. He makes a point not to look at her, but Seisu notices how strange Sho was acting. She immediately pieces it together that Sho was the one who found the ancient ruins. Sho hesitantly confirms it. Eventually, Choco and Misha conclude the stream, thanking everyone for watching and wishing everyone an enjoyable time in the game, before the screen cuts to black. Belle lets out a heavy sigh at the thought of needing a noble's recommendation letter again. Seisu asks her if she wanted to create a guild and Belle says yes, but she points out that she didn't know how to get to know a noble. Seisu says that if it was about nobles, she had connections of her own. She roleplayed so hard in being royalty that it manifested having noble friends, OMG. Belle exclaims in surprise before asking her to tell them more. Belle turns to Sho and tells him that she was borrowing Seisu for the moment. Meishin and Sho watch Belle and Seisu walk off. Meishin asks if it was okay for them to just go like that, but Sho reassures her that it would be alright and he was glad that they were getting along. He suggests that they head on over to the island. Entering the island, Rupi barks happily as it catches sight of Sho. Sho opens his arms in welcome, just as happy to see it again. As he cuddles with Rupi, Sho asks if it's been good and says that he would feed it now. As always, Mion asks him what their plan was for the day. Sho says that first of all they should start moving. The cave from before would be better for shelter from rain and wind. Setting foot deeper into the cave, Sho finds a wide open space and announces that that area would be the safe zone. Taking out some sticks, he excitedly declares that they were going to start by making some bedding. He quickly lines them up and secures them with some vines. As Sho looks over his work, Rupi jumps on top of it. Thinking it over, Sho leans down and tries to flatten the bedding. However, the height was unstable. He says that it couldn't be helped with the uneven ground and driftwood he used. Mion asks if they should use stones to stabilize it, and Sho agrees. He immediately uses stone wall. Using the spell, he starts to create small bricks. Mion is surprised and Sho explains that what he was using was a smaller version of the stone wall magic dropped by the goblin magician from before. After that, he lines them up on the floor like brick tiles. Mion asks if they still needed the driftwood, but Sho says that at that point they were unnecessary. However, he stops short and asks if the bricks made by stone wall disappeared over time. Mion goes to check, thinking that someone must have used it already. Shu happily thanks her for her efforts. As Mion checks, she starts to mumble in a worried tone. Shu asks what was wrong. Mion confirms that it apparently stayed forever. Shu says that that was a good thing, but he's still confused by why Mion sounded worried. She continues to say that while she was going through the related items section of the strategy wiki, she had read something called the Witch Belle Stone Wall Incident. Sho's eyes go wide at the sound of Belle's name. Mion explains that apparently there was an incident where Belle tried using the skill in a town. It ended up causing a commotion with guards gathering and everything. Quite surprised that her account hasn't been suspended yet. Sho softly mutters to himself in disbelief that she did something like that. Sho lets out a short laugh, saying that it was still good for them that the spell didn't disappear over time, and Mion agrees. Sho supposed that they were done moving for now after they'd transplant the light moss. Mion asks if he had any other plans. Sho says that he actually found a river on the east side of the cave earlier, so he was planning on checking it out. Mion agrees that it was a solid plan. With that, Sho makes his way to the east side of the cave where the goblins originally were. As they arrive, Rupi immediately barks happily and jumps into the water. Mion exclaims in shock. She says that if Rupi jumps in, the fish would scatter, but Sho reassures her that they weren't going fishing. Getting into the water himself, Sho starts to lift more bricks into the water. He starts to make a small enclosure in the river using the bricks with only a small neck for entering. Mion asks him if it was something he learned from the trap setting skill, but Sho tells her that it was actually something his dad taught him. If it attracted some fish, he planned on trying to make a basket trap with vines or sasa bamboo. As he leans down, Sho mumbles to himself, wondering if lizard meat would work as bait. From behind him, Mion watches with an awestruck expression. She calls out to Sho and says that he was amazing since he seemed to know everything. Sho is confused, but he explains that he just happened to know because his dad liked to go camping. With glittering eyes, Mion says that he was incredible even so. Sho turns away from Mion's odd expression, his face flushed. Turning back to Rupi, Sho asks if they should go for a walk while they wait for the trap to catch some fish. Rupi excitedly leaps up with an excited bark. Sho looks up to a nearby line of trees. He decides that the western forest might be a good place to start as he wanted to set some traps up there too. With Rupi happily leading the way to their walk, Sho comments that the atmosphere that day seemed somehow more peaceful. Mion asks if he was sure, but just as suddenly Sho flinches as his presence detection skill notifies him. He turns to the thick bushes to the side, wondering if there was something there. As he and Rupi carefully sneak up to the bushes, Mion reminds him to be careful. Pulling back the branches of leaves, a creature appears in a small clearing before them. Sho stares in shock to realize it was a deer. Sho comments that it was quite big, and Mion adds that it didn't seem afraid of people either, as it grazed at the grass. Sho looks up for some details about the deer. The game system tells him that the deer was called a gradia, a large deer with gray fur. It warns him that the male's antlers were sharp and hard. If the player cooked gradia meat, they would find it delicious. If they want to process it for materials, the bones, tendons, and skin could be used in various ways. Reading through the details, Sho's eyes sparkle at the thought of the delicious meat. With renewed energy, he decides that he's going to hunt the gradia. However, seemingly sensing his intentions, the gradia quickly makes its escape before Sho could come any closer. Mion sighs that it ran away, and Sho adds that it seemed to be sensitive to presence, or maybe it was sensitive to sudden bloodlust. He enters the clearing and crouches down to check what the deer was eating. He takes out a small branch from the ground and looks up its details. It was called a rexon, a highly reproductive wild grass. When cooked, it has a strong spicy and bitter taste, but becomes more mild when boiled. It was also used as a raw material for medicine and antidotes. Without much hesitation, Sho pops the leaves into his mouth. Mion asks him if it was safe to eat raw. Sho reassures her that since the deer was eating it, it should be fine for him too. I think he forgot for a second that he wasn't a deer. He decides that since they were already there, they should take some back. However, he mumbles to himself that he'd like to hunt the deer eventually too. More time passes and they make their way back to the river. Mion says that they came back, but Sho seemed to be setting up more traps in the closest part of the forest. Sho explains that he wanted to upgrade the vines in the traps a bit. Mion is confused by what he meant by upgrade, but Sho tells her that in their current state the traps wouldn't be able to catch a deer. Telling her to watch what he does next, he spreads some vines out and flattens them with a plank of wood. He peels some of them in half and soaks them in water. Sho says that it was nice that in IRO, work that would take time only took 15 minutes in the game. He explains that once he dried and weaved the vines, they would make stronger ropes. Mion again praises him for being amazing. Sho uses thick tree branches for drying the vines. Sho decided it was time to check on the river again while the vines were drying. He turns to Rupi and reminds the dog not to jump into the river this time, to which the dog barks in understanding. Sho leans over the river to check on the trap. To his delight, the fish did indeed get trapped in the wall of rocks. Now Sho just needed to block the entrance and catch it. He asks Rupi to catch the fish if they try to escape. Rolling his sleeves back, Sho lunges for the fish and catches them, however one manages to escape. Small paws leap into the air and a small mouth catches the fish. Presenting the fish, Rupi makes its way back to Sho as he praises it for a job well done. Laying the fish down on the grass, Sho looks up its details. It was called a flower trout, a freshwater fish that preferred clear streams. When cooked, it was typically grilled, but also came out delicious when smoked. Sho and Rupi's eyes glitter in delight at their first fish caught. Sho decides to grill it, and Rupi looks up at him, completely excited at the idea. Holding them up by sticks over a fire, Sho celebrates to find the fish were grilled nicely. Rupi tries to lunge for it with excited barks, but Sho quickly moves it away, telling Rupi to wait while he cools it down a bit. Blowing small breaths at the fish, Sho praises Rupi for a good job at waiting. Rupi makes one more happy bark before Sho tells him to dig in. They both take bites of their grilled fish, expressions completely blissful. Mion comments that the fish looked delicious. Sho reassures her that it really was tasty and with some seasoning they would be perfect. Their peace is disrupted when the game system announces that ancient ruins were discovered. Sho is surprised that more were already found. Mion wonders where they were found and decides to check the available information. Sho agrees that it was a good idea and decides to weave the vine rope in the meantime. However, as they talk, Rupi blinks its eyes sleepily. With careful steps, it makes its way over to Sho and lies down on his lap, much to Sho's surprise. Rupi playfully sticks its tongue out at Sho, expression happy, and Sho returns his own happy smile. Suddenly, another announcement echoes throughout the island, declaring urgent news to all players. Sho listens closely. Civil war had broken out in the Grania Empire. From here on out, the empire would no longer be selectable from the starting map. Sho is shocked to hear about a war breaking out. After the announcement was made, Sho decides to ask Nut about it at school the next day. He wanted to know about the mainland story too. Mion remembers that Nut had chosen the Empire for his starting nation, and she adds that she wanted to know about it as well. Mion asks if they should check the official forum for more information, and Sho agrees, wondering if there were more detailed accounts. Opening the forum, some talk about escaping the Empire and fleeing to the kingdom. Mion comments that players in the Empire seem to be in quite a bit of trouble. Sho is shocked to hear it was that bad. He hopes that Nut is okay, but his thinking is disrupted when he feels something drip on his finger. Almost immediately, he's drenched in water as the sky starts pouring. Realizing a second too late, he exclaims that it was raining and the vine ropes he hung out to dry were still out. He stands up in a panic, causing Rupi to panic as well as he's disrupted. Sho quickly makes a break for it, saying that they needed to take shelter. Mion tells him to hurry back to the cave. Soon enough, they find themselves back in their home. With a dark expression, Sho lets out a heavy sigh of resignation at the sudden downpour. Mion comments that all of them got wet. I honestly didn't think it was possible for her to get wet too since she wasn't exactly physically on the island. Sho peeks out the cave entrance. He comments that the rain was getting heavier and heavier. Mion worriedly asks if water wasn't going to find itself in, and realizing she was right, Sho quickly springs into action. He casts Stonewall again and makes bricks to line the cave entrance to keep the water out. Having finished the task, he wipes the sweat off of his forehead from the effort. Thinking of what to do next, he also couldn't cook since he couldn't use fire. He slumps into the cave wall, petting Rupi on his lap. Suddenly, a notification screen appears in front of him. It informs him that he had acquired a residence, making him gain 1 SP. It also informs him that My Home setting was now available. So it asks if he would like to set it up. Sho is just confused by all of the information. Looking around the empty cave, he wonders if the residence it was referring to was his current space. With an unamused expression, he mutters that the game liked to suddenly throw things at players that they didn't understand. Mion suggests that she heard players could bring up help for questions and announcement text from the game system itself. Sho is rather surprised to hear that. Looking back at the game screen, he realizes that there was an option for an explanation for residence acquired. The game explains that residence acquired was a reward obtained when one who is blessed owns a space where people could live in. Sho thinks that maybe placing the stone wall by the cave entrance defined it as a living space. He goes back to the screen and wonders about the My Home setting. According to the game, it was a place set as a home among the residences owned by the one who is blessed. Sho reads that if they made it a residence, they could also make it a respawn point. Mion wonders how far it extended, so she asks if Sho could try walking around a bit. Sho gets up and realizes that the clearing he was in was pretty spacious. He further steps in, Rupi following close after him. Suddenly, the game screen appears again. Mion comments that it looked like the ruins itself were off limits. Mion asks if he was going to set it as his home, and Sho says that surely there was no harm in setting it up. He agrees to the option and the game screen shifts again. It informs him that the My Home setting was completed, and now it notifies him that the declaration of nation founding was now possible. It asks Sho if he would like to found a nation. That's crazy power to give to a player. Making a regular guild needed so many things, and Sho just has the power to make a whole nation. His expression suddenly drops as he slowly realizes what the notification meant. Sho is surprised to hear that even players could start whole nations. Mion comments that it was getting quite grand. She asks him what he planned on doing. Sho points out that he was fine with the idea, but it might get rather troublesome. Mion is confused, but Sho explains that it would probably trigger another world announcement. If the island became a country, other players might be able to see the location, and even non-playable characters might start showing up too. Realizing the gravity of the choice, Mion quickly says that other people coming to the island was absolutely not allowed. Sho reassures her that he thought so too. Sho was sure it would be a huge problem if people started coming in, especially since they just got to start in a place where they could take it easy. Sho frowns as he continues to think it through. He asks Mion if Belle was playing Iroh right now. Checking. Mion tells Sho that she was. Sho says that since being able to start a nation was quite the significant discovery, they should report it to her during the next club meeting or so. Mion comments that with the Empire situation and everything else, things have gotten busier in Iroh. Sho agrees with a small laugh. Mion suddenly laughs and asks Sho if he's now able to tell whether his discoveries were amazing or not. Sho asks her to elaborate. Oblivious. The next day, Sho asks Nut for details on the Empire, and he explains rather stressfully. The Grania Empire's emperor passed away without naming a successor. As such, a succession dispute broke out between the first and second prince. I wonder if they were NPCs too or just players. Because if they were NPCs, that means the Civil War was a game event, right? To accommodate fleeing commoners and migrating players, an emergency quest called Expansion of Living Space was issued to players in the Kingdom and Republic. As he thinks about it, Sho walks down the school corridors on his way to the clubroom. He wonders if the Expansion of Living Space quest might be related to the nation-founding declaration. He steps into the clubroom and immediately Belle excitedly greets his arrival. Sho comments that that was unusual, but he thanks her for her good work today anyway. Sho notices that she hasn't started playing Iroh yet that day, when usually when she arrives first, everything was already prepared. Belle flinches, unable to meet his eyes, but then she laughs awkwardly and says that she had to handle a few things, much to Sho's confusion. Suddenly, Yada pops up from behind them and says that Belle's career talk session went on longer than expected. If I'm not mistaken, career talks were a portion in school where the students talk to their counselor or advisor for what college or career they plan to take in the future. Belle's face completely flushes red as she tells Yada that she didn't need to tell Sho that. Yada only laughs, saying that Belle's excuse made things too obvious. She also points out that Belle had said her future dream would revolve around games. I mean, considering she's a big streamer who made millions for the school, I think that's a fair career plan. Yada tells her that she needs to study properly too. If Belle got a failing grade in even one subject for midterms or finals, it was remedial classes for her. Belle groans but doesn't say much else. Sho notices that Mion was at the door. Going back to the conversation, as Mion comes closer to the group, Sho laughs, saying that it was very much on brand for her as the club president to say games for her future dream. Mion says that for being the club president, it didn't quite seem impossible. Belle quickly changes the subject, saying that they should jump right into IRO. However, Sho cuts her off and says that he had something to report first. He holds his phone out to her, saying that something had come up while he was in the cave during yesterday's session. On the screen was Sho's notification of declaring nation founding. He hands his phone to her and Sho watches as Belle completely freezes in place. Yada suddenly comes up behind her asking if she was okay, and Belle flinches enough to snap herself back into reality. She reassures Yada that she was fine, but she turns to Sho as he tells her that he heard about the world quest from Nut about the space expansion, so he thought it might be related. Handing his phone back to him, Belle agrees that it probably was. The area around the tower they were heading into in today's stream didn't seem to be kingdom territory either. Sho asks if that meant it would be possible to declare a nation founding there too. Belle says that it would, but making a nation-founding declaration during their current situation would only bring them trouble. Sho agrees, especially since he heard that the Empire was in chaos right now. Belle asks Mion and Sho if they knew what was happening in the kingdom at that moment. Sho says that he heard around noon that refugees were overflowing outside the city. Belle confirms the information, adding that requests to build new towns for them have started appearing at the guild. Sho asks Belle if her party was also handling the requests, and Belle proudly admits that they were actually in charge of the southeast area. Mion wonders about last night's world announcement about ancient ruins, and Belle confirms that it was her party that found them while they were exploring the southeast. Yada suddenly comes up behind Mion and asks for her progress on the video, and Mion informs her that it was done so Yada could go check it. Yada and Mion go over the video together. Meanwhile, Belle leans closer to Sho and asks if there were any new developments besides the nation-founding declaration. Shu remembers that there were some deer-like creatures named Gradia and seemed to be fast runners, based on his experience. Belle remembered that Gradia could be seen all over the kingdom too. However, Belle tells him that without archery skills, hunting them down would be difficult. Shu thinks about having to learn archery. Shu suddenly remembers to ask if he should watch Belle's livestream for the day, and Belle reassures him that he didn't have to if he didn't want to. She remembers that he didn't like spoilers. Yada finishes reviewing the video and says that it was all good to go. She suggests that they post it and check for feedback later. Mion thanks Yada for her help and Belle smiles, noticing that they had finalized things on their end. Mion goes back to their group apologizing for making them wait, and Sho and Belle congratulate her for her good job. Without further ado, Belle excitedly pushes Sho and Mion forward, saying that they can begin playing Iroh now. As Sho puts on his HMD, he can't help but think that Belle seemed to always become visibly happy when it was game time. Sho materializes into the game once more and reminds himself that he had ended playing the game the other day while still in the cave. He quickly checks for the weather outside to find it sunny. Rupi takes notice of him and barks happily before leaping into his arms. Sho catches him before saying that they should have some food. Immediately, Rupi's eyes look even more excited and Sho apologizes for making him wait. He kneels down and holds out some food for Rupi. However, opening his inventory screen, Sho notices that they are beginning to run out of rabbit meat. Getting back up, he asks Mion if they had about an hour left until club activities ended, and Mion confirms that it would be about that long. As Rupi finishes the last of its meal, Sho tells it that they are going to split up and asks it to hunt for more by Kabits. Rupi agrees using small barks. Mion asks what Sho planned on doing, and he tells her that he would mine the ore in the cave and process them too. If he could make iron ingots, Sho would be able to make a pickaxe. In the future, he thinks that he might even be able to make an axe and build a log house with some lumber. The idea makes him smile. Sho turns back to Rupi and tells it that once it was done hunting, it should come straight back to the cave. Making a small bark in response, Sho pats Rupi's head and it bounds off into the forest. Sho watching it go with a smile and a wave goodbye. Pulling out his dagger, he figured it was about time for him to do what he needed to do. Some time passes in the cave and Mion happily comments that they were able to get quite a lot of ore. However, Sho says that as expected, using just a knife and hammer was too difficult for him. He suddenly feels a tug at the back of his clothes. He turns to see Rupi and welcomes it back. Mouth-stuffed, Rupi can only manage a small mumble in acknowledgement. Rupi releases the bicarbonate in its mouth and Sho praises it for managing to hunt two of them. Snuggling against Sho's lap, Rupi lets Sho pet him as he continues to praise it for being so capable. Their moment is cut short when Mion reminds him of the ore processing. Sho flinches as he remembers. A machine rumbles in place and Sho and Rupi patiently wait for it to finish. It was the ancient magic furnace currently working. The game system informs him that it should take 15 minutes until the processing is completed. Mion happily comments that it was working properly and Sho wonders how many ingots they were going to get. Mion asks him in turn how many were needed to make a pickaxe. Holding out his hands trying to measure the tool in his head, Sho says that the head of the pickaxe should be about that width. Mion says that it looked like the amount they gathered wouldn't be enough. Thinking about the remaining time until the ore was processed, Shu asks Mion if they still had some time before club activities ended. She reassures him that they still have 35 minutes left. Mion asks if he was planning on doing something else and Sho says that maybe they could go catch some fish in the river. Rupi immediately perks up at his words and barks happily. Sho is amused by its excitement and asks if it really liked playing in the river that much. Sho and Rupi run out of the cave together, expressions delighted. Watching them go, Mion smiles as she comments that Sho and Rupi acted like siblings. When they get to the river, Sho and Rupi stare sadly at the passing stream. The heavy rain had caused the water level to rise, so they couldn't get any fish. Both of their expressions now depressed, Sho mutters that he didn't think of that possibility. However, he suddenly gets notified that he received a message. Mion makes sure to point it out to him, and Sho opens his inbox to check, wondering who it was from. He thinks for a moment that it may have come from the admins. However, he's rather surprised to find that it was from Belle, rarely enough. He opens the message and reads through it out loud. Belle pleads with him to become an external director for the guild. But reading through the mail together, Sho and Mion are confused about what that was. Whipping his HMD off his head, Sho asks Belle in a frenzy to explain herself. However, Belle calmly removes her own console and greets him. She tells him that the explanation could wait, but Sho argues that he just got too curious. Belle reminds them about her plans to create a guild before and explains that her companions agreed and they finally decided on making one. Mion peeks behind Sho and reminds them that making a guild required a lot of funds and a noble's recommendation letter. Belle greets Mion from coming back from the game and informs them that Sesu had connections. Mion can't seem to believe it. However, she suddenly blinks in realization and turns to Sho, asking why he wasn't surprised. Sho explains that Sesu had always been that way. She was either lucky or beloved by the gods, but his words only make Mion more confused. Shu explains that even the super rare equipment Sisu wore when they first met was a reward she got from an ultra rare quest. So Sho guesses that she probably got the recommendation letter through her incredible luck, too. Sho doesn't realize he also has that incredible luck on him. Sho reassures them that since it wasn't cheating or anything, things should be fine. Belle says that she didn't suspect anything was wrong with that, but that wasn't the end of it. Sho asks if there was a problem, and Belle admits that Sisu had given them a condition. Apparently, Sisu had requested that Sho join the guild as well, making Sho exclaim in shock. He says that it might be physically impossible, especially since his island was so far off from the mainland, and Belle agrees. For now, Sisu was content with Sho being an external director. Sho asks what he was supposed to do with that. However, he suddenly asks Belle if her party knew everything, even the fact that Sho was Sisu's brother. Belle reassures him that she hadn't told them yet, making him sigh in relief. Crossing her legs, Belle asks what Sho thinks of the idea. Sho comments that she seemed quite enthusiastic about Sesu's idea, and Belle agrees since it was a rare opportunity for them. Not only that, creating a guild would progress the world quest. She knew that Sho had noticed too. Within the mandate of expanding the survival area, there was development of new towns. That meant that to smoothly progress that, players' guilds were essential. Sho asks if she meant that it currently wasn't progressing. Belle explains that regular guilds alone couldn't handle development-related quests coming from above. They were state-led quests issued by nobles, but there was competition between merchant guilds and adventurer guilds. Sho realizes that players ended up having to pay for the mess, and Belle agrees, saying that the realism effect was part of the appeal. Sho asks what Seisu thought of everything, and Belle says that she said that going through public guilds for development would be slow, so it would be better if players' guilds could replace them. Sho complains that she was trying to give them quite the difficult job, but Belle points out that it was better than doing nothing. Again, she asks him what he planned on doing. Mion looks at him, waiting for his answer. With a resigned smile, Sho says that he would do the guild external director role. Belle excitedly says that she would inform the others. Sho asks her what he needed to do, but Belle says that Seisu would be the one to explain things. Later on, they find themselves meeting back up at the virtual club room. Inside, Seisu was already sitting inside. As the others enter the room, she says that she's been waiting for all of them to arrive. Sitting close to her, Mion greets Seisu. Sho sits next to Seisu, slightly frowning as he wonders what she was planning. With everyone present, Seisu asks where she should start explaining. Belle asks if she could tell them about the noble who was going to introduce them, and Seisu agrees. She says it was someone named Viscount Edward Amela. He was a gentleman in charge of weapon procurement for the Wolst Kingdom's National Defense Force. There's a pause before Belle turns to Seisu and asks unamused what were the odds of meeting someone like that. Shu does the same, making sure that Seisu wasn't making everything up. Proudly, Seisu explains that she became friends with Viscount Amela's third daughter, Lady Emily. She recounts the story of how she met them. During a day where there were no good quests and she was bored, she went to a certain trading company in the royal capital. While she was getting training from their personal guards, by chance Viscount Amiela appeared with his third daughter, Lady Emily. While Viscount Amiela was busy talking to one of the guards, Seisu noticed the sad expression on Emily's face. Seisu knelt down and greeted Emily. Much to the young girl's surprise, Seisu asked her why she was pouting, and Emily explains that her father had promised to help her with her studies. However, he'd only been talking to other people the whole time they were together. Continuing to pout and tears gathering in her eyes, Emily admits that her studies were falling behind. Seisu smiles, complimenting her for being diligent before asking what subjects she didn't understand. Emily holds out a math textbook and Seisu exclaims, saying that it brought back memories. I still can't tell if the nobles are supposed to be NPCs or players. Why does this kid have a modern-day math textbook? Amazed, Emily asks her if she understood the subject, and Seisu proudly says that she does and tells her not to underestimate her. She decides to teach Emily and tells her to take notes. Emily diligently follows her command, and Seisu proceeds to give her some pointers. With that, Seisu finishes her story to the rest in the virtual clubroom on how she became friends with Emily, adding that her father was quite grateful to her after. Belle and Sho continue to look at her in disbelief, asking if it was just her imagination or just some fairy tale. Seisu says they were being quite rude. Finally giving in, Sho figures that it wasn't a lie since Seisu was telling the story. Shifting the subject, Sho asks what he needed to do if they were creating the guild. Seisu tells her brother that he just needed to keep playing the game on the uninhabited island as usual and just report to them before streaming when he creates something. Sho is surprised to hear that that was all he needed to do. Mion cuts in with a frown, saying that the things Shu came up with couldn't be summed up by "that's all." Seisu nods her head solemnly in agreement. Belle then says that in other words, they wanted Shu to tell them about his incidents in advance so they could use that new information to make their guild profitable. Seisu agrees. Eventually Shu and Mion end up back on the island. Mion says that the others were only trying to compliment him, but Shu, tired from their meeting, laughs awkwardly as he says that a compliment was definitely a way to put it, but he wasn't so sure. Beside him, a notification screen pops up that the processing was completed. Moinjin informs Shu that the ingots are ready. Shu gets up and heads to the furnace. He counts 10 iron ingots, however as he holds them, he finds them incredibly heavy. Moinjin asks if 10 ingots would be enough to make the pickaxe. Shu admits that he wasn't sure, so he decides to keep making more just in case. Moinjin sighs as she says that they would have to do more waiting. Sho decided to gather more Rexon while they waited for the ingots to process since they were also running low on food. Turning to Rupi, Sho says that it was still in its growing phase. Rupi barks in agreement. Heading back into the forest, Sho exclaims as he looks at the ground. There were quite a bit of plants growing besides the Rexon. Mion happily says that it looked like they would be able to gather a lot. Suddenly, Rupi comes trotting up to him with a forbit in its mouth. Sho pets Rupi on the head for a job well done. With a satisfied smile, he thinks that his current life was the kind of relaxed feeling he wanted. He suddenly flinches as he feels a presence. Looking up, he finds a drooling beast coming towards them. The game system informs him that it was a Rambodia, a ferocious and fast boar monster. Sho straightens up in alarm as Rupi starts to bark at the Rambodia. The boar is angered and starts to click its feet on the ground, getting ready to attack. Makian calls out to Sho in alarm. Calming himself, Sho tells himself that even if the boar was big and ferocious, he would have a strategy if it suddenly charges in. Just as he thinks so, the Rambodia lunges for him. Sho stretches out his arm and casts Stonewall. At the speed it was going, the boar is unable to stop in time and slams completely into the wall. It gives one shrill cry as it goes down. For the finishing blow, Rupi comes in and bites at the boar's weak spot. Instantly, a notification screen pops up announcing that Sho's character level has increased. Sho pumps his fist in the air in victory. Mion praises Sho and Rupi for their teamwork. Sho comments that the fight was easier than he thought. Creeping closer to the boar, he decides to use appraisal. Cambodia was a monster that charges and attacks animals other than itself. When cooked, the meat was delicious once the unique gamey flavor was removed. The organs could also be eaten if cleaned and heated thoroughly. For materials to be processed, its bones, tendons, and skin could be used as various materials. Sho smiles in triumph. Since the boar was big, they had obtained quite the haul. Mion calls out to Sho and suggests that they should give Rupi a reward. Sho agrees and wonders if a big fillet would be enough. He hands the fillet to Rupi and it happily starts munching on its meal. Mion congratulates Rupi for getting a prize. Sho smiles happily as he watches Rupi. However, a notification pops up again, informing him of a nearby creature. Sho flinches, unnerved to know that there was still something else close to them. Mion asks him if it was a monster. Sho thinks that it probably was, however he couldn't see it. He frowns to himself, knowing that he wouldn't have been notified unless the creature was relatively close. He looks to the forest surrounding them and creeps closer, thinking that it might be on the other side of the tree line. Mion warns him to be careful as he peeks behind a tree. What he saw was a bear, much taller than he was. Sho swallows, nervous, realizing that it was an armor bear. He starts to wonder what he should do. There seemed to only be one opponent, but there could also be others nearby. Even though his level had increased, Sho wasn't prepared at all. He's deciding what to do for now, when he suddenly hears growling. He turns to see Rupi, angrily baring its teeth. Worried that Rupi would suddenly bark loudly, Sho acts fast and lunges for the dog. Taking it into his arms, he makes a break for it and runs back to the cave. In the safety of their home, he finally lets Rupi down on the ground. He kneels down in front of Rupi and asks if it was okay. However, Rupi seemed to be shivering in fear. Sho frowns in concern. Mion calls out to Sho and asks if it was possible that the armor bear was the one that attacked Rupi before they met. Sho's eyes widen in realization and he clenches his fist tight. He suddenly calls out to Rupi, surprising the small dog. With full determination, he declares that he was going to defeat the armor bear. Sho ends up asking Belle how to defeat an armor bear. Belle stares at him for a moment as Sho dutifully waits for her answer. Finally, she asks him what was wrong for him to be so fired up. Sho explains that he wanted to defeat it for Rupi's sake since when they first met, the bear had injured it. Belle says that defeating one was quite challenging and it was usually an enemy one would take on with a party. Sho frowns, thinking it wasn't a good chance. However, Belle suddenly grins, complimenting Sho for his strong spirit. She decides that she might be able to give him a hint or two. Excited at the idea, Sho praises her. Belle says that coincidentally their party was planning to hunt one down that very night. Her words catch Sho's attention. Sho almost couldn't believe it. Belle explains that streams of defeating tough enemies tended to do well. If he had any questions, he could ask her or Sesu later on. She makes him promise to watch the stream and Sho excitedly agrees. Belle suddenly asks why Mion wasn't with him. Sho says that she was in the classroom earlier, busy editing a video. However, she had cried that she couldn't afford to show the current quality of her work, so Sho let her be. Belle comments that Mion was quite the perfectionist. She suggests that Sho go on ahead and he reluctantly agrees. Arriving in the game, the sky is dark and rain pours. Sho lets out an annoyed sound at the current weather conditions. Below him, something makes a sad whine. Sho looks down at Rupi and says that they couldn't go out with the rain pouring so heavily. He suggests that they make dinner inside and Rupi immediately perks up at the idea. Sho suddenly looks up as a familiar screen appears above him. Mion appears looking tired, but she compliments him for his good work that day and apologizing for being late. Sho returns her greeting. He gets her up to speed and explains that since it was raining, he was planning on making dinner in the hall. Sho asks her if the video turned out well. Mion reassures him that she somehow did it. He tells her that he was looking forward to the next one, but suddenly his eyes move past the screen where Mion was and further into the cave. Mion asks what was wrong and Sho points to something at the far end of the cave. He points to something glowing in the ground. Kneeling down beside it, Mion asks if they should use appraisal and Sho agrees. He takes the small glowing stone in hand and he and Rupi leer over it. The game notifies him that it was a tiny spirit stone with the light element. Apparently it was a magic crystal inhabited by a light spirit. Reading it, Sho immediately flinches in shock and confusion. Mion is just as flustered, asking if it really had a spirit inhabiting it. Sho says that that was what it said, but he was more confused why it was in a cave like that. He opens up a game screen and looks for a skill. He settles for something called spirit magic and immediately acquires it. Mion asks how to use spirit magic. Reading through the game screen, Sho explains that if a player had both a spirit and spirit magic, they would be able to control it. Apparently, if the player could convey an image to the spirit, it could materialize it. Mion is amazed at the information and Sho agrees. However, it seemed to consume a lot of mana points to cast. Sho asks her if they should try out the attack spells in a safer place. Mion asks him again if the spirit was a light spirit. Sho confirms it but asks why she was curious. Reading through her own game screen, Mion informs him that there was no mention of light spirits in the forum. There was wind, tree, water, and earth, but no light. Sho suggests that maybe it just happened to not be listed, but Mion disagrees. Either way, Sho decides to try a simple spell. Mion reluctantly tells him to be careful. Looking down at the glowing stone in his hand, Sho repeats to himself that he just needed to imagine it. Clenching his fist tightly over the stone, Sho closes his eyes and imagines a soft light to illuminate the cave near the ceiling. Opening his eyes once more, Sho finds small lights floating all over the cave. His eyes widened in wonder. He exclaims in amazement. Mion praises him for being able to use the stone perfectly on his first time. He opens up a game screen as he remembers to check how much mana points the spell consumed. To his surprise, there was little change. It almost didn't decrease at all. Mion points out that spells that the spirit specialized in didn't seem to consume much MP. Sho wonders how long the lights would remain lit, and Mion tells him that he needed to dismiss it manually. She adds that while it was active, it would keep consuming a bit of his mana, so he needed to be careful. Thinking deeply, Sho realizes that they need to be careful during battle. He decides that it should be fine for just lighting up the hall. Mana reassures him that she would keep an eye out too. Sho turns to Rupi to find the puppy looking rather sad. Picking it up into his arms, he asks what was wrong. Rupi whines, but it's quickly silenced by a very loud growl. Sho turns to Rupi's stomach where the sound came from and he freezes completely. He yells in panic that he had completely forgotten about their dinner. Their day eventually ends and they report back to Belle. As they finish their report, she looks at them incredulously. After a brief pause, she repeats to Sho that he was able to acquire spirit magic. Sho laughs nervously, agreeing with her assessment. Belle looks away, holding her head in her hand with a terrifying silence. Sho starts to sweat, wondering if what he just did was somehow bad. Crossing her arms, Belle tells him to listen. Free spirits that haven't contracted with anyone were quite rare. Even if the player wanted to use convenient spirit magic, currently only players who started off as elves could use it. Belle leans incredibly close to Sho with a dark look in her eyes. In a grave voice, she repeats Sho's report that he just happened to pick a free spirit up so easily. That's the jealous disbelief of a gamer they talk about. Sho tries to calm her down in a panic. On the sidelines, Mion wonders why the spirit was just living there. Yada thinks that the glowing moss in the cave is suspicious in its own way. If there's something glowing in a dark place, they tend to gather there. Mion and Yada make it a point to ignore Sho as he begs for help. Belle eventually leans back and sighs, saying that she hoped Sho understood how valuable his findings were. She then smiles at him and asks if it was okay to share their current progress with their guild members. Sho agrees, adding that he wanted to leave the verification and analysis to her since he wasn't cut out for something like that. Belle is glad for the big help. She comments that it really felt like they were guild management members when they cooperate the way they've been, even from a distance. Sho shyly scratches the back of his head, telling Belle that he was glad that he could be of help. Belle remembers that she hasn't introduced the other members. Taking out her phone, she tells Sho that he should at least be informed of what each person specialized in. She scrolls through her phone as Sho waits for her to show it to him. First was Yuki, leader of the production teams and also handles accounting. An older man was named Zeruto, in charge of warhammer crafting and woodworking. Jinbei handled small shields, pottery, material processing, and crafting. Bakasu did almost all heavy lifting that included axework, woodworking, and carpentry. Shizune handled rapiers, sewing, and material processing. And finally, Demaria, who did agriculture, gardening, medicine preparation, and pottery. Belle adds that Demaria was a gentle big sister type. That was all 6 of them. Peeking over his shoulder, Yada comments that there were a lot of crafters among the members. She figured that since there were a lot of opportunities for those types of skills to be used, everyone had them. Belle catches Mion thinking deeply and asks if anything caught her attention. After looking at the guild members for a while, Mion says that she noticed that there were a lot of adults mixed in. Yada happily tells them that games were fun even when they were already adults. Belle chimes in that she was completely right. Sho asks if Yada went on adventures in Iroh, and she tells him that she didn't because some people might accuse her of playing with her students, which is a weird line on both fronts. Sho asks her if she was really worried about something like that. Yada tells him not to worry about it because as a teacher she had other ways to have fun. Mion and Sho look at each other before rushing Yada and asking what she meant. Yada only laughs and says that they would understand when they both became adults. Belle comments that her words sounded too suggestive. Glad to know that I wasn't the only one who thought so. Belle points out that it was already 6 p.m. Yada says that they should all better start heading home and they all congratulate themselves on a job well done for the day. Sho and Mion find themselves back in Iroh. Sho turns to Mion and lets her know that he was planning to wrap things up early that day because he wanted to watch Witch Belle's stream. Mion is surprised to hear that he was watching and tells him that she was going to watch as well. She adds that she thought Sho wasn't going to even log in. Sho says that he only planned on being there for a little bit because he wanted to check on the traps he set on the west side. From below, Rupi happily barks as he trots up to Sho. Sho kneels down and reaches out a hand. He pets Rupi on the head, saying that since he couldn't give Rupi much attention during the day, they should go gathering while they were walking around. Mion watches their happy exchange with a happy smile. Their group heads deeper into the forest. Mion asks Sho where exactly he set the traps. According to her, they were quite deep in. It would be lucky if they caught some unknown creature, but there weren't even any animals around that area. Sho says that it would be nice if there were birds around or something. Mion suggests that birds might be near the coast, like seagulls, and Sho agrees. Rupi's ears suddenly perk up and he lets out a loud bark as his twinkling eyes make their way to a berry tree. It was a seasoning called green berry fruit. It became a green berry small fruit with strong acidity. If it was to be used in cooking, the skin and juice could be used in a beverage or as seasoning. Sho wonders if it was like a blueberry. Since it said strong acidity, he also wondered how sour it was. He picks up a berry from the tree and pops it into his mouth. The moment he bites into it, his mouth seems to cave into itself. Sho drops to his knees, exclaiming at how sour the berry was. Minoan asks in a panic if he was okay. Eventually, Sho gets up and says that the berry was gradually getting sweeter. As he continues to chew, he decides that it would be useful to use. Suddenly, Rupi lets out a bark at Sho, much to Mino's surprise. Sho asks if Rupi wanted to eat the berry as well. He tries to reason with the puppy that it was really sour, but Rupi stares him down with the biggest puppy eyes it could muster until eventually Sho cracks first and he agrees. Sho picks out another berry and pushes it into Rupi's awaiting mouth. Immediately, the puppy whines as its taste buds are attacked by the sour taste. Sho tells the puppy off. However, eventually Rupi is happily barking again. Sho understands that the berry had eventually gotten sweeter for the puppy too. The berry became delicious after a while. Mion watches their odd exchange quietly. Sho decides to pick a few of the berries since they could be used to season meat or fish. Mion is worried that it would be difficult to adjust the amount while cooking, but Sho reassures her that that would be where skill came in. Squinting as he looked around, Sho says that they should be near where the trap was set, but his presence detection was kicking in. Either there was nothing caught or it was no longer alive. However, Sho figured there could be one more reason. When they arrive at the trap, Sho exclaims to find it's been destroyed. Mion asks if what was caught was able to escape. Sho figured that their prey was taken by the armor bear. It probably stole the gradia that was caught in the trap. The large footprint left behind was clearly not from a boar or a deer. Sho frowns as he remembers the fearful look on Rupi's face from before. His frown deepens. Sho supposed that they really needed to do something about the bear soon. Sho leans back on his gaming chair thoughtfully with a sigh. He mumbles to himself that he would be facing quite a few challenges. After finding out that the armor bear had taken the gradia, Sho had cleaned up the traps, disbanded the group for the night, and watched Witchbell's stream. After all that, he found himself looking up how to defeat the armor bear. It seemed too difficult to defeat alone, but magic attacks might be somewhat effective. On the other hand, physical attacks seemed to bounce off the armor like skin, true to its name. As of the moment, the only thing Sho had on hand that might work was spirit magic. The armor bear's skin looked heavy, so maybe he could use that to his advantage. However, his thoughts are disrupted when Sisu peeks her head into his room, asking if he was going to have dinner. Sho apologizes for forgetting and follows her out. The next day, Mion immediately sighs heavily as Sho arrives at IRO, saying that the dinner they had the other day looked delicious. Sho asks Mion if Sisu had posted a photo of their food on social media again. Mion complains that she saw the photo in the middle of the night. Almost like she was talking to Sisu, she says that she was so envious of her for being able to eat Shu's cooking every day. Shu laughs, flustered, saying that she was praising him too much. He then turns to Rupi so they could go grab its food. Rupi perks its ears up at the sound of food. As he feeds Rupi by hand, Shu announces that for the day he planned on making some new armor. Mion asks him if he knew how to do it. Shu reassures her that once a player knows the sewing skill, they should be able to do so. He already had some Rambodia leather with him. As for the structure, he supposed he could look at what he was wearing now. Mion asks if he was already preparing to defeat the armor bear. Shu says yes with a determined smile. However, Shu admits that there was still something that he needed. Mion asks if the paralysis knife he used before wouldn't be enough. He agrees, saying that the paralysis effect seemed to be too short, much to Mion's shock. She recommends using magic. Shu agrees, adding that he hasn't used it since he put up the stone wall. He says that Witchbell would probably know about elemental magic. Mion says that spirit magic might work too. Shu wonders what kind of attack a light spirit would do, suggesting that maybe it would blind its enemies. Mion says that it didn't sound very strong. Working on the leather already on hand, Shu says that he would think about it more after he finished making the armor, although he knew he wouldn't take that long. Just like he said, not long after he finishes the leather mail and raises his sewing skill level. Mion praises him for an amazing job. Sho's eyes glitter to read that the leather mail added 25 points to his defense. The previous armor he had on added 5 to his defense, so now it has increased by 20 more. Mion excitedly tells him to try it on. Sho smiles brightly as he finds that although the leather mail was just inner equipment, it felt heavy and reassuring. Mion asks him if it was hard to move, and Sho tries doing some stretches, reassuring her that it was fine enough. Suddenly he feels a tap on his body and turns to find Rupi's sparkling eyes. Sho is confused for a moment until Mion explains that since he suddenly started moving after being idle for too long, Rupi probably thought that it was time for a walk. He apologizes for making Rupi bored and, since they still had some time, invites him to go to the western forest. Rupi lets out a happy bark at the idea. They eventually head out. As they walk, Sho is glad that the weather was nice since it's been raining quite often as of late. Rupi suddenly lets out a loud bark and dives into the dirt. Sho panics at its sudden actions. Mion tries to reassure him that Rupi just found something. Finally, Rupi pops his head back out with something in its mouth. It lets out a happy woof at its success. Sho is surprised that he actually found something, but Mion quickly reminds him to use his appraisal. Hanging from Rupi's mouth by its stem was a rootdish. According to the appraisal, it was a vegetable with thick roots. If it was to be cooked, both leaves and roots were edible. The roots were spicy, but the heat disappears once cooked. Mion and Sho stare for a moment before agreeing at the same time that it was simply a daikon radish. Sho was happy that they got something easy to use. Mion asks what kind of dish he was thinking of making. Sho comes up with grated daikon or stir-fry as possible meals. Mion notices that the radish looked different from what they usually saw, and Sho agrees. He decides to try the radish for himself and he pops it into his mouth. He immediately cries out in horror to find it tasting very spicy, making Mion concerned. She asks if he was okay, and Sho, choking through the heat of the rootdish, complains about the game's food having extreme flavors. Sho eventually recovers and says that if he simmered the radish, then it might become delicious. Mion expresses her concern at the idea, but Sho reassures her that daikon and oden was delicious. He turns around and pets Rupi's lowered head, praising it nonetheless for a job well done of finding the radish. However, Rupi doesn't lift its head. Sho is concerned and Mion suggests that maybe it was in a bad mood. Sho tries to reassure Rupi that it didn't need to worry about anything, but he stops. Rupi was growling under its breath. Sho realizes what was going on. He looks up into the surrounding forest in time to see the large figure of the armor bear coming towards them. Sho looks up nervously as the armor bear gets closer until it's standing a few feet in front of them. He couldn't believe that it had spawned so close to them. As Rupi continued to growl lowly, Sho was convinced that they had no choice but to fight it. The bear suddenly pulls its arm back before throwing a clawed paw at Sho, who barely manages to dodge. Seeing the bear attack, Rupi immediately leaps into action and dives for the monster's arm. However, Rupi completely freezes as its fangs don't even sink and a metal sound echoes where its teeth make contact with the bear. Sho immediately warns Rupi that if it was going to aim for anywhere, it should be for the knees or inner thighs. They would be done for if the bear's armor hits them. Angered, the bear shakes its leg and flings Rupi off of it. Honestly surprised Rupi hadn't slid off of it in the first place since its fangs don't even sink into the skin. Sho calls out to Rupi in horror. He readily holds out his arms and catches Rupi to soften its fall. Sho still feels the strength of the hit, amazed at its incredible leg power. Holding Rupi protectively in his arms, Sho throws a fireball at the armor bear. The attack hits and Sho celebrates the small win, so now he just needed to keep up the pressure. He holds out a hand and starts firing stone bullets. The bear shields its face with its arms, stones thrown by Sho bouncing off of its body. The bear was successfully only able to defend itself. Now he just needed one final attack to land. He digs his hand into his satchel and throws it at the bear. It was the paralyzing dagger. With its arms still over its face, the bear is unable to see nor defend itself against the dagger and it sticks to its skin. The bear falls to its knees with a grunt. Shot pumps his fist up in victory. Now he just needed the bear to be paralyzed for 30 seconds. The bear continues to growl and Shot's smile slowly disappears, concerned that it wasn't working. The armor bear suddenly gets up and lets out a loud roar. Its features now slightly different. Shot and Mion stare in shock and horror. Shot casts appraisal at the bear. According to the screen, it was a red armor bear, a mutant species of armor bear. It was said that rarely when a monster felt like its life was in danger, it had the ability to mutate. Sho exclaims at the idea of a mutant species, the result being way beyond what he was expecting in a fight. Sho figured that its attack power must have increased dramatically too. The paralysis poison didn't even affect it. He tries to make another strategy. Mion suddenly yells out an alarm to catch his attention as the bear starts to close in. Within seconds, it's in front of Sho and delivers a harsh kick right at him. Sho goes flying right into a tree and he grunts in pain. He looks up at his health bar to see it cut in half in an instant. He watches as the bear raises its arm, ready to give him the killing strike. In desperation, he holds out his hand and calls out to the light spirit. The bear lets out a growl as it's blinded. Seeing their chance, Sho calls out to Rupi and they go running back into the forest. Mion is glad to see them have the chance to escape, but to her shock, Sho tells her that they were taking the bear down. He turns to Rupi and tells it to bark. Hearing the barks, the red armor bear immediately follows after them. Sho is surprised to find it closing in almost instantly. He holds out a hand and summons a stone wall right between them and the bear. Unable to stop in time, the bear immediately slams right into the wall. Sho stops and waits, but soon the wall is cracking and the bear is charging right at them again. He curses to himself that it wasn't working. They go back to running, but Mion reasons they won't be able to outrun it with pure speed alone. Sho pleasantly tells her that bears were able to run at 40 kilometers per hour. Glad to see he has the time for small jokes while on the run from a killer bear. Suddenly, an idea seems to click with Sho. He hurriedly tells Rupi to head west and the puppy quickly changes directions. As they run, Sho swears as he realizes that the footsteps are getting closer again. He glances behind him to check on the bear, and when it's close enough once more, almost arm's reach, he summons another stone wall. Again, the bear crashes into it, but the wall starts to crack as it breaks through. When it's able to push its head through the wall, it tries to dive its whole body in and swipe at Sho and Rupi. However, when the wall crumbles, the bear stumbles forward, unaware of the open cliff. Sho and Rupi roll away in time as the red armor bear keeps moving forward right off the cliff. It goes crashing into the seawater below. Struggling for a moment, the bear inevitably sinks into the sea. Up on the cliff, Sho breathed heavily from all the running, lying on the ground where he dodged with Rupi. All around him, notification screens kept popping up. With a single kill of the red armor bear, his character level had increased, as did his elemental magic skill level, his spirit magic skill level, and his dagger skill level. He also had another safe zone added as he defeated the area boss. Mion suddenly calls out to him. She couldn't believe that he was actually able to defeat it. However, she reprimands him for being far too reckless and making her worried sick. Sho was just glad that the bear sank under the weight of its own skin. With an awkward laugh, Sho said he would take it down. He apologizes to Mion and says that the fatigue was so overwhelming that he couldn't even stand up, making Mion panic even more. Later on, Sho is completely drenched and Mion can only stare in shock. Rolling his shoulders to ease the muscles, Sho mutters that although his method to defeat the red armor bear was fine, he hadn't thought about how to retrieve it. Thinking back on Sho scaling down the cliff earlier, Mion comments that she was surprised because she never expected him to go into the water to retrieve the body. How did he bring it all the way up to the surface? Guess we'll never know. She worriedly asks him if he was okay, but Sho simply says that thanks to his reckless moves, his swimming and diving skills improved too, so it all worked out in the end. More importantly, they needed to disassemble the bear. With the red armor bear already in front of him, he starts making quick work of it. There was a lot of meat, bones, and hide to go through. Suddenly his eyes catch sight of something rather large and sparkling among the parts disassembled. Mion was sure it was a magic stone and Shu agrees, adding that it was rather big compared to the others. The appraisal description said it was medium-sized, but it was already as big as his fist. However, if it was any larger it might be too big to carry around so casually. Mion disrupts his thoughts to let him know that there was an announcement about defeating the armor bear. Sho laughs awkwardly at the news. Mion keeps going, saying that the players were all making a big fuss about Sho solo defeating an area boss. Going through the game forums, Mion notices that a lot of people were wondering what an area boss was. Sho didn't know either, but the red armor bear was an especially amazing opponent. Getting up and stretching his body, Sho says that they should be logging off soon since he was getting pretty tired. Mion tells him to wait for a second. She asks him to open his message box before going. Sho is confused for a moment, but he agrees. What he sees makes him flinch. Mion asks him if he saw all the messages from Witchbell. Sho comments that there were a lot, majority of them asking about his fight with the red armor bear. Later on, they all meet back at their virtual clubroom. Seisu happily swings her legs back and forth, praising Sho for his fight with the bear. Sho had told them what happened. Belle says that she understood the gist of it, summarizing it to Sho defeating the bear by dropping it into the sea and drowning it. Sho explains that to be more precise, the paralyzing poison on his knife kicked in when it was weakened by the water, which ended up drowning it. Mion is rather surprised to hear that that was what happened, and Belle is rather confused that she wasn't aware either. Mion explains that she couldn't see what was happening underwater. She wonders if the game was designed where the camera couldn't follow underwater. Belle wonders about the same thing, coming to the conclusion that they might have to ask the developers about it since it would be troublesome if they couldn't see underwater battles in the future. Sho suddenly remembers to ask Belle whether it was normal for armor bears to suddenly appear like the last one did. He was only able to react on time because he had presence detection. With a rather teasing smile, Belle says that she didn't know because she never thought about it. But should another one appear, Sho could just defeat it again by blocking it with a stone wall. Shu looks pained by her words, calling himself a muscle brain internally. Shu finally says that he would inquire about the underwater camera along with the other issues to the developers, and the others agree. Belle excitedly turns to Mion and asks when she plans on posting the battle with the red armor bear, confident that it would be a huge hit again. Mion thinks about it. She explains that the current schedule was that the video for next Tuesday would be the rope weaving episode and then Thursday would be about blacksmithing and sewing. Belle frowns, thinking about the schedule. Sho asks if there was a problem and Belle explains that defeating an area boss is quite the significant event. Other area bosses might be evolving in other places in the game map already, so she suggested that it was better to share the information sooner than later. Sho still didn't use Sayazuter, and Sesu adds that it wouldn't be appropriate for her or Belle to make the announcement. They were left in a dead end for ideas. Belle suddenly slams her hands on the table to catch everyone's attention. She says that if they couldn't come up with an answer, then they would have to ask someone else for their opinion. Sho is confused for a moment until Belle reminds him that they had their reliable advisor for times like these. And with that, that was them for the day. She reminds everyone to get to bed early and they disband for the night. The next day, Yada recommends they make a short video. Mion asks if she was talking about a video that was under a minute. Yada says that it was a video style mostly used for memes, but they could also be used for quick announcements. They're most likely talking about TikToks, Reels, and Shorts. Sho asks Mion if she thinks she could do it, and she starts thinking of where to include the part where the armor bear mutates and then the announcement. Sho is glad that she's able to visualize what to do. As Mion continues to conceptualize on her own, Belle calls Sho over. Opening her laptop, she says that she wanted to show him her archived video from yesterday. She had just announced their establishment of the guild, so she wanted to inform him too. She opens up a video and plays it. In the video, Witch Belle is on a stage surrounded by microphones and spectators. With a solemn expression, she thanks everyone for gathering today. Sho turns to Belle beside him and with an unimpressed expression asks if it was a full-fledged press conference. To which Belle just smiles and nods proudly. Witch Belle begins to say that she, along with her other companions, had established the Players Guild Silver Mansion, however she wasn't the representative. Instead, it would be Sezu. She comes on stage and happily introduces herself. As they watch the video, Sho turns to Belle and asks why she wasn't the representative. Belle says that various things happened, making Sho confused. The Witch Belle in the video seems to echo the same things Belle said, repeating that she wasn't the representative because of some minor issues with her actions in the past. Sho wonders what she meant by that, but suddenly he freezes. He remembers the stone wall incident. Just as he thinks so, Belle slams her laptop shut. With a slight blush on her cheeks, she tells Sho that that was the most important part, so he should understand already. Sho awkwardly smiles and says that she didn't have to hide it since they already know. It was in the wiki after all. Belle looks away, repeating that she didn't really mean any harm back then. But Sho is doubtful. Behind them, Yada turns to Mion and gives the go-ahead to post a video. Belle turns to the wall clock and notices that there was only 10 minutes until 6 p.m. Belle comments that quite a bit of time had passed already, that they didn't even have time to log in. Yada asks if they should head out a bit early today. As they start making their way out, Mion asks Sho if he planned on logging in when he got home. Sho says that he would since he wanted to make a new dish for Rupi. Immediately Mion's whole face brightens at the idea of a new dish, already looking forward to it. When Sho logs into the game later on, he blinks in surprise. He wasn't in the usual place he always spawned at. Suddenly, a woman's voice comes from behind him, making Sho jump. She thanks him for coming. She explains that they were currently in the GM room and she was Choco, the GM supervisor. Sho starts to sweat as he realizes who she was. Choco was one of the hosts during the update stream they watched. He couldn't understand what such an important person wanted with him. Almost like she heard his thoughts, Choco tells him that she was there for the inquiry he made yesterday. First of all, Choco wanted to apologize for the camera not working underwater. Apparently it was a bug. She reassures him that they had already fixed the underwater issue. Second, Sho also had a question about the armor bear, and he finally asks if they just suddenly spawned like that naturally. Choco explains that since the last maintenance there has been an issue with monster spawning. A GM had noticed and manually respawned it, but unfortunately what happened to Sho happened. As such, they wanted to offer Sho a reward for reporting the bug. A screen appears beside her and she tells him to pick one among the 3 reward options. 3 skill points, 300,000 iris, or 3 magic crystals. Sho's eyes immediately glitter at the options, unable to believe that it was okay. He ends up choosing the skill points. Choco tells him to check his game inventory later. With a final bow, Choco thanks him for his time and tells him to reach out if there were any other problems. Sho bows his head and thanks her as well. When he looks up, he finds himself back on his island. Mion immediately greets him, noting that he took quite a while to come back. He apologizes for making her wait before giving her a rundown of what happened with the GM about his inquiry. Mion is surprised to hear that they don't just reply by email. Sho suggests that it could be because he was given choices for a reward, earning himself 3 skill points. Mion claps her hands together, happy for him. Their conversation is cut short when something goes crashing into his back with a loud bark. Sho exclaims in shock at Rupi. The puppy smiles happily up at him and Sho apologizes for making it wait. Sho grins at Rupi and invites it to get some food. Mion asks what he planned on making. Thinking hard, Sho says that since they gathered Rudish before, he was thinking of making a salt-simmered dish with rabbit meat and daikon. He just wished they had one more flavor. Mion reminds him that he was able to gather some seaweed when he went fishing. Sho decides to go with that. Some time passes and Sho preps the salt-simmered meal. Sho is happy to see that it turned out great, Mion adding that it looked delicious. He asks Rupi if it was good, but the puppy is busy diving into his bowl. Sho is glad that they were able to eat well. As they rest, Sho starts to plan on exploring the west side today. They were able to defeat the area boss, so they should be able to explore at their own leisure. At the idea of exploring, Rupi starts to bark excitedly. Sho tells it to wait and he will be finished eating soon. Mion watches their interaction with a smile. Eventually they head out. As they walk, Sho notes that presence detection wasn't reacting at all. The southern part of the island seemed to have become quite peaceful. Rupi suddenly lets out a bark to catch Sho's attention. Rupi points him to the direction of a cave entrance. They start to make their way in. Mion asks if it would be okay to enter and Sho reassures her that it would be fine. He holds out a hand and the cave glows brighter, much to Mion's shock. Sho comments that having a light spirit around was really helpful. They walk further in. As they went deeper in, Sho had a feeling they were heading east. Inevitably, the end of the cave was a door. Mion asks if it was the same door over on the other side, and Sho agrees, thinking they were connected. Since opening the door didn't trigger any announcement, it was probably considered the same area as that cave. Upon entering the door, they're faced by a fork in the road. Sho decides to try the door straight ahead first since it looked different from the others. However, as he touches the door, a mechanical voice rings out. It says that access was confirmed for the one who is blessed, but it asks him to enter the release code. Sho freezes. He didn't know any release code. He chooses to say open sesame. The door remains closed and the silence is only broken by Mion's stifled laughter. She comments that Sho was cute for attempting to open it using that. It was a safe bet for all we know though. Sho's face flushes a deep red, completely embarrassed. He decides to head up the staircase instead since the door seemed impossible for the moment. Rupi lets out a bark before quickly bounding up the staircase. Seeing him make a break for it, Sho calls out to him, telling him to be careful, but he quickly follows suit. Pretty soon they reach the top. At the peak, Sho is surprised to see what looks like a new area marked by a volcano. Mion's voice is worried as she asks if it was really okay since it even seemed even more dangerous than a volcano. Sho reasons that whether it was okay or no, they wouldn't know until they tried. In front of them stood a rather menacing-looking haunted house. Sho says that they had no choice but to investigate first. Sho's eyes scan the garden and catching sight of all the growing weeds, his expression goes steadily more horrified. A chill runs down his spine and he says that after the investigation he would do some weeding and other things. Mion urges him to start with the investigation first. He starts going through the exterior of the house. The stone steps and wooden exterior looked old overall, so he might have to repair them with stone wall. He takes out a hammer and Mion panics, asking if he was going to destroy it. Shota reassures her that he was only checking the durability. Despite looking old, it was surprisingly sturdy. With the exterior done, they decide to head inside. He grabs the doorknob and tries to open the door but stops. The door wouldn't open. Mion asks if it was locked from inside. Sho agrees that it was most likely the case. He wonders what to do next when Rupi catches his attention. They share a look and Rupi gives him a bark of approval. This is what happens when your pet matches your energy. Shu eventually agrees, seeing that there was no other option. Shu raises his hammer at the same time as Rupi dives through the door and they end up breaking the wood open. Almost immediately though, they're swallowed by a huge cloud of dust. Shu tells Rupi in a panic to run away. They wait for the dust to settle. Shu coughs out, clearing his throat. He turns to Rupi in concern, asking if it was okay. Mion tells them that they were too reckless and Shu and Rupi just laugh, the two of them unable to come up with a proper reply. Shu then suggests they all go back in since the dust cloud was gone. Mion tells them to be more careful this time and Shu agrees. He and Rupi peek into the house. Scanning the first room for a moment, Shu comments that the room almost had nothing in it. Rupi makes a move to enter the house first, Shu telling him to be careful. However, the moment Rupi's paws makes contact with the floor inside, a loud creak echoes throughout the house, making the puppy panic. However, Sho says that since the flooring was made of wood, it was to be expected, adding that it seemed to have deteriorated quite a bit. Mion wonders if there were any holes and Sho agrees, saying that there might be. He summons his light spirits and spreads them closer to the ground. Looking around more, the only thing that catches his eyes is the stairs in the back. Sho tells Rupi to follow behind him. They descend the staircase and upon reaching the bottom, they find themselves in a narrow room with a low ceiling. Mion comments that there was only a cupboard in the room, which definitely isn't suspicious in the least bit, and Sho suggests they check it out. Using appraisal, it says that it was an old high-quality cabinet, a cabinet made from fine wood created quite long ago. It could be repairable or craftable with some woodworking. Craftable most likely means it could be used for another purpose besides a cupboard. Sho wonders what such a high-quality item was doing in a place like this. Sliding the doors open, he finds it full of books. Taking out some of the books, the titles covered a range of topics like magic tomes, history, and geography. Mion and Sho figure they could get quite a few academic lessons from the information. However, as he holds one book, some sheets of paper fall out. Written on the top sheet was the word record. Mion wonders if it was some kind of notebook. Sho suggests that maybe it belonged to the owner of the house, but he was hesitant to read it without their permission. Mion argues that he was worried about something like that after he broke down the door and Sho awkwardly agrees. She notes that the paper was quite dirty, already having turned brown. Sho points out that it was indeed old, but it was also washi paper made from straw, so the color might be what it originally looks like. Mion is confused what straw washi is. Sho explains that it wasn't used much these days, but it was paper made by crushing and boiling rice straw. Hearing the explanation, Mion suggests that maybe Sho would be able to make it too. Sho starts to go through the paper. It starts with Flower Moon 5. The writer was demoted from the Central Advanced Magic Research Institute. They've become a watchman on the island. Sho frowns, already finding the contents heavy from the very beginning. He keeps reading. The mana recycling system using the island's volcano was old and inefficient, but highly safe. The control room where he transferred from the center was too bleak to live in, so he moved the transfer magic circle to the southwest duty hut. Sho looks up to see a transfer magic circle in a corner of the room. Men comes to the conclusion that it was the magic circle connected to the research institute and Sho agrees. The writer continues, saying that the control room was inspected once a year, so he locked the north and south protective walls. After that, the numbers 4725 were written. Sho releases that it was the release code. Mion jokes that the code wasn't open sesame and Sho blushes, telling her not to tease him. Sho says that getting the release code was a good find. As he keeps reading, it continues about cooking and fishing. The rest all talked about daily life. Mion comments that she found a strange sense of familiarity. Sho agrees and continues reading. The writer says that a former colleague of theirs appeared at the transfer magic circle. Apparently, the director caused part of the equipment to go haywire and then collapsed. The forced shutdown device wasn't properly working either, so they were looking for someone who understood it. The writer ends it by saying that they had no choice but to help. The following pages were empty. Sho has a dark look on his face and Mion voices out his thoughts. The person didn't come back after their last writings. Sho decides not to use the transfer device and Mion quietly agrees. Suddenly, she lets him know that it was almost 11 o'clock. Sho swears, saying that he needed to log out. As he goes to put away the books he took from the cupboard, a game notification pops up and informs them that the Kingdom of Partem has been founded. Sho blinks in surprise at the sudden announcement. He wonders if it was Witch Belle and the others, but Mion disagrees. She says that although they did have a live stream today, if they were going to found a nation, then surely she would have told them in advance, so it might have been someone else. Sho says that he would log out and ask Seisu. Mion says that she would look into it too and she bids Sho goodbye. Back in the real world, Sho blinks as he takes off the headgear. Suddenly Seisu pops up from behind him asking if he was done. Sho exclaims in surprise. He asks her not to startle him like that, but Seisu says that she was the one who was startled. She asks him about the nation-founding declaration that was just made, but Sho denies that it was him. Hugging his head, Seisu disappointedly asks again if he didn't know anything about it. Sho frowns, saying that she was being a bit harsh. He adds that he thought it might have been her and the others. In the background, his phone rings. He received an email from Mion. Apparently, the Partem territory, which was on the second prince's side in the Imperial Civil War, had just declared independence. Shu wonders if that meant the second prince had given up succession. Seisu thoughtfully says that the conflict hadn't escalated that much yet. She quickly turns around and says that she would ask the Viscount about it tomorrow. Shu bids his sister goodnight as the door slams shut. He settles into his own bed for the night. The next day rolls in. At the computer club, Shu and Mion log back in. Mion asks where they were heading off for the day, and Shu says that he wanted to investigate a spring nearby. He and Rupi immediately bound to its direction. As they walk, Shu notes that there didn't seem to be any sign of monsters around the area. He adds that since people could live in the nearby mountain hut, it must be peaceful, and Mion agrees. However, Shu says with nothing happening to him, it might lack the excitement that came with an RPG. Mion reassures him that it was fine because it was just a slow life. He's basically playing Animal Crossing with some battles every now and then. Rupi suddenly barks in panic and Sho asks it what was wrong. When he looks up at what Rupi was looking at, he flinches. Something was flying fast towards them. Sho throws his arms in front of his face to protect himself from the impact. He curses at himself for not having a small shield. However, when he blinks his eyes open, he exclaims in surprise to see Rupi proudly chewing on whatever was flying at them. Sho praises him for a good catch. Wondering if it was some sort of winged creature like a butterfly, bird, or bat, Sho opens his hand and tells Rupi not to swallow. Rupi spits the creature out into his open palm and Sho raises it closer to his face. He immediately freezes. To his horror, it was a passed-out fairy. Mion is equally as shocked to see what was in his hand. In a panic, Sho asks Rupi if he had bit down on the fairy, and the puppy quickly shakes its head. Sho was quite sure that the fairy wasn't dead. Just as he thinks so, the fairy's eyes snap open and she gets up. Much to Sho's shock, hands on her hips, she frowns at Sho with her cheeks puffed out. Holding out his hands in surrender, Sho stutters out that he was glad that she was alive. However, he notes that the fairy looked rather angry. Well, she was just spat out by a puppy earlier, after all. Sho apologizes to her, and decides to offer a gift. Mion suggests giving the fairy some food and Sho agrees to the idea. Taking out a couple of berries from his items, he offers it to the fairy, not quite sure if she would like it. However, the fairy quickly snatches it from his hand. Sho watches for the fairy's reaction to his gift. As she shoves the berries into her mouth, her eyes immediately brighten. She happily flies around in circles and Sho sighs in relief, glad that she likes it. While the fairy continues to fly merrily, Sho wonders if she would like more and offers another batch of berries to her. She immediately pops them into her mouth, humming in delight. Shu can't help but think about how, despite being so upset earlier, the fairy was now in such a good mood. Her spoiled behavior felt like déjà vu as he thought about Seisu's smiling face. Done with eating, the fairy then flies closer to him and decides to take a seat on his shoulder. Sho turns to Mion and awkwardly asks what to do now. Mion suggests that he try to find out where she came from first. Sho agrees and decides to search for her home in the direction she came from. Awkwardly turning to the fairy, Sho wonders if it was okay to let her ride on his shoulder. However, seeing him staring at her, the fairy pushes his cheek to make him look away. Sho internally groans in pain. Some time passes and they arrive in a flower field. Sho sighs out, commenting that he didn't know that there was such a beautiful place there. The fairy immediately leaves his side and heads to a tree in the middle of the flower field. Sho wonders if that tree was her home. Shu hums in thought, and Mion asks if she was going to follow the fairy. Shu says that he was curious but he might put it off for the moment. Much to Mion's confusion, Shu reasons that whether it was a quest or a part of the main story, it seemed to him that it might take some time to complete. He needed to prioritize renovating the hut. Shu suggests that they head back to the mountain hut and Mion agrees. When they arrive, she asks if he was going to start renovating right away. However, Shu says that although that was the plan, he wanted to consult Mion about something first. Mion is surprised. Shu says that he was planning on building a storehouse to the right of the mountain hut on the east side. Mion asks why, and Shu explains that he wanted to temporarily store things he wants to put on the upper floor. With the current state of the roof, the objects would get wet from leaks if it ever rained. She agrees that it was rather dilapidated and asks if he was going to make it out of wood. Thinking about his options, Sho decides to use stone since he could just use stone wall to make it. Mion asks if he was going to dismantle the mountain hut right after, and Sho agrees. He explains that he would remove the roof tiles, then the walls and the floor. He planned to do it quickly because it'd be bad if it rained during that time. Mion comments that it would be nice if they had a streak of good weather, and Sho agrees. He descends the staircase and heads back to the cupboard. Sho notes that it would be troublesome if the books got wet when he inevitably removes the floor. Mion agrees, since they were valuable books after all. As Sho goes through the cupboard, he says that he hasn't finished reading all of the books yet, so he needs to take good care of them. However, he stops short as he pulls out a certain book. He excitedly says that he didn't know that there was a book on the fundamentals of magic. He wanted to read it, but Mion quickly reminded him that the renovations should come first. Sho eventually says that he didn't have enough time today anyway, so he would have to continue tonight. Mion notices that it was late already and she comments that time always seemed to fly by quickly. Sho smiles brightly, saying that that was how it was when you were gaming. At the sight of his expression, Mion goes quiet, her face going red. Sho is confused by her sudden silence and looks at her questioningly. Seeing his confusion, Mion gets even more flustered and she quickly brushes off his concern by saying he was right. Stretching his body, Sho says that it was time for them to log out. Mion asks a question before they head out. She asks for a bit of his time tomorrow morning, much to Sho's confusion. Mion says that she just needed a moment and it would be fine. Sho says that he had to make breakfast, so their meeting would have to be pretty early. Mion excitedly takes him up on his offer. They bid each other goodbye. The next morning, Sho's back in the virtual clubroom. He wonders if Mion had already logged in. Right on cue, she appears, greeting him a good morning. They take a seat and Sho asks what was up, since it was unusual for Mion to want to talk in the morning instead of during club activities. Mion says that she wanted to show him something, although it was only for her own satisfaction. She summons a screen and shares it with Sho. She tells him that she's been working on it. Sho examines it for a moment, noting what appeared to be a field with a house and dog running about. He excitedly asks if it was a housing app and Mion confirms it for him. First video editing and now programming. Mion is pretty insane for that. She says that it was just a trial version, so the icons were only template data, but Sho says that it was fine since it was really easy to understand. His finger hovers over the small dog icon on the screen and he grins at Mion. He asks if it was supposed to be Rupi in front of the mountain hut and Mion happily says of course. Sho asks if he could operate it too and Mion says that she made it so that he could only do simple operations. As Sho happily goes through the app, Mion watches him with a smile. Sis is falling harder and harder by the second. After a while of editing the app, Sho tells Mion that he was thinking of putting a cooking area outside like the one shown on the screen, and she agrees that it was a great idea. She begins editing the page as well, suggesting a flower bed around the house. They start pleasantly talking about what to add to the house and the area. Mion suggests that it would be nice to add a window in the mountain hut where the spring could be seen, and Sho agrees, adding that since there was no one around, they didn't need to worry about privacy hedges or something. They spend the rest of their time happily thinking of ideas. Eventually, Sho is proud of their progress. Mion suddenly remembers that Sho's real house was a detached house. She says that she was envious because they lived in an apartment. Detached house just means Sho's family owns a house that is actually theirs and not for rent. Sho seems rather shocked by her words. After thinking about it, Sho admits that his actual house really didn't suit his tastes, rather surprising Mion. Tinkering with the game screen for a bit, Sho shows Mion a house design that he preferred more. Mion asks why he liked the Japanese style more, and Sho explains although it wasn't as luxurious as the one on the screen, his grandfather's house had a Japanese style to it. Admiring the photo, Mion thinks that the house, along with a pond in the garden, was a wonderful sight. Sho asks Mion if she had her own preference for a house design. A soft blush comes to Mion's cheeks as she glances at the screen again. Then with a grin she says that she liked that kind of house as well. Sho shares her grin and decides that they should make that kind of house. Mion happily agrees. On the screen, a smaller icon of Sho, Mion, and Rupi sit in the engawa, or the porch of their ideal Japanese mountain house. Back in the game, Sho excitedly runs, saying that their goal for the day was to perfectly finish the grass cutting before dinner time. He says that he definitely would. However, his voice is cut off as he looks around him. Around him, the grass and weeds were more than ankle high. Immediately, he almost loses all excitement, his expression stressed. Mion tries to encourage him, telling him to hang in there. Rupi immediately jumps up to him, encouraging him as well. With their support, Sho smiles and says that he couldn't give up quite yet. He tells Rupi to go play for the moment, and without a moment to lose, Rupi bounds for the forest area. Sho comments that Rupi was a little too excited about leaving. Mion suggests that maybe he needed more exercise. Sho smiles awkwardly, saying that he really wished he could play catch with Rupi or something similar. Mion then suggests that maybe the gardening and agriculture skills could be useful for cutting the grass. Sho agrees with her idea, and since he still had some skill points left from before, he would be able to get both. He acquires the needed skills and looks around him again. He sees the tall weeds scattered again. After a moment of silence, he pumps himself up to get started, and Mion wishes him good luck. An hour later, Sho wipes the sweat from his forehead, but his smile is bright. He was able to finish the gardening. Mion congratulates him for a job well done, and Sho says that he felt an amazing sense of accomplishment. For his next order of business, he needed to build the storehouse. Mion asks if they were going to be laying down stones, and Sho agrees, but they had to do one more thing. He takes out rope from his items. After that, he roughly drives a wooden pole into the ground. Mion is confused and immediately asks what he was doing. Sho explains that he was marking the area to make a perfect rectangle. Mion praises him for being so meticulous, and Sho says that it was mostly just for his own satisfaction. After tying some rope around the pole, he forms a rectangle with 3 more poles. With that, he was ready to start laying the stones. Sho thinks deeply about the size of the storehouse and comes to the conclusion that it was going to require a lot of mana points. Mion says that it seemed to be impossible to stack all of them at once. Flopping down to the ground, Sho says that he would have to take breaks in between. Suddenly, a small snout comes into his view and he looks up. Rupi barks at him happily. Rolling into his stomach, Sho happily welcomes Rupi back with them. However, Mion notices something odd about Rupi. Sho notices that the puppy seemed to be sparkling for some reason. Maybe he's really a vampire. Suddenly, Rupi raises a paw and taps Sho on the cheek. Sho involuntarily closes his eyes as the sparkling is transferred to him. A notification suddenly appears, informing Sho that his mana points were fully restored. Both Sho and Mion exclaim in complete shock. Mion wonders if it was one of Rupi's skills. Sho agrees, saying that it was the only explanation. He pets Rupi, praising it. With that, Sho declares that he would be able to stack the stones all at once. Mion cheers him on. Back in the real world, Sho takes off his headgear with a smile and a sigh of relief. He stretches and says that thanks to Rupi they were able to make a lot of progress. Belle congratulates Sho and Mion for a job well done for the day. Sho looks up and says the same to her. However, Belle is slouched on her desk with a pained expression, commenting that both Mion and Sho looked so happy. She lets out a strangled laugh. She says that they looked like they were having fun. Sho asks if she played Iroh as well. Belle points a thumb behind her at the table and Sho peeks behind her to see better. On the table were multiple sheets of paper. Sho asks if it was all her homework and Belle agrees. Yada suddenly slides the clubroom door open and calls out to Belle, asking if she was done with her homework. Belle panics at the sight of her and quickly goes back to work, saying she was almost done. Looking over her shoulder, Yada tells Belle that she was staying until she finished everything. Watching their conversation, Sho internally thinks that Belle had it tough. Mion suddenly calls out to him and Sho turns to face her. Hesitantly, Mion says that she had a favor to ask. A blush dusts her cheeks as she asks if he could come to her house on the weekend. Sho is about to ask why when he's cut off. Belle all but tackles him, joining their conversation and asking if it was to introduce him to her parents. Mion's face completely flushes red, saying that that wasn't it. Belle ignores her and tells Sho to dress nicely and to bring a gift. Mion tries to deny that it was for that purpose. Suddenly, Yada sneaks up behind Mion with a hand on her shoulder. She tells them not to separate with a dark smile. Mion tries to explain that it was because their club activities were being monetized. Yada understands then that Mion wanted to explain it to her parents together with Sho. Sho nods in understanding. Mion says that since it was like a part-time job, she wanted to properly introduce Sho. Fidgeting, she adds that if it was only okay with him. With a smile, Sho reassures her that it would of course be fine. Mion's face completely lights up. She tells Sho that she would let her mother know. Back at home, Seisu exclaims in complete shock and disbelief. She leans close to Sho in a panic at the idea that he was going to meet Mion's parents. Sho screams back that he had already gone through the same conversation. Seisu leans back, her eyes sparkling as she says that she couldn't miss the opportunity. As such, she was going to accompany him. Sho smiles awkwardly at her words, but he says that he was planning on bringing her along anyway. Seisu brings out her phone and says that they needed to prepare proper outfits. Sho grumbles in disbelief. Lowering her phone, Seisu remembers that Sho said that the event would be on the weekend. Sho asks if there was going to be a problem. Seisu explains that it wasn't her schedule that was her problem, but the memory that their sister was coming home. Shu blinks at her words. In their family, besides their parents, him and Seisu, they had one older sister. She lived in a college dormitory and hardly ever contacted them, so they rarely had a chance to talk. What is up with this family and why are all of them all over the world? Sho asks if Seisu heard something from her and Seisu says that it was just a hunch, much to Sho's disbelief. Seisu offers to contact her, saying that she would definitely want to come. Sho doubts that their sister Mashiro would even see it. Seisu agrees, however she picks up her phone again and decides to prepare formal wear for all 3 of them anyway. Sho tells her that that wasn't what it was about. Suddenly Sho's phone starts to ring. Looking at the caller, Sho tells Seisu it was Mion. He stands up and takes the call outside. Mion's voice comes from the other end, apologizing for calling at a late hour. Sho reassures her that it was fine before asking if there was something wrong. Mion says that she wanted to discuss something important. Sho laughs, saying that she didn't need to be so formal with him. Hesitantly, Mion says that while she was telling her mother a bit about Sho, their conversation had ended up with her mom wanting to try his cooking. Sho blinks, dumbfounded. Sho laughs nervously, asking if she introduced him as being a good cook. Mion says that she told her that he made delicious-looking meals. Sho reasons that he couldn't make anything too impressive. Mion reassures him that his usual cooking would be fine and she asks for his thoughts. Sho thinks for a moment before letting out a sigh and agreeing. Mion could almost be heard crying in relief on the other end, thanking Sho profusely. They end the call and Sho thinks about Mion's words. He remembers their conversation where Mion had said that Sho's cooking from a while back looked so delicious that she was almost jealous of Sesu. Sho thinks for a moment before he turns around and heads back inside. He decides to practice a bit beforehand. Fixing her shoes in place, Sho asks Sesu if she forgot anything inside the house. Sesu twirls around to face him, saying that she didn't and urging him to hurry up. Sho smiles at her antics and tells her to wait since he had to set up the home security first. Their conversation is cut off when a woman suddenly walks towards them, announcing her return. Sesu's whole face lights up at the sight of their older sister. She immediately tackles the older girl. Mashiro greets her with a smile, saying that she's grown a bit since the last time they saw each other. Sesu proudly declares that she grew a centimeter since the last time they met. Mashiro and Sesu share a tight hug. Looking up, Mashiro asks Sho if she wasn't going to get a greeting. Awkwardly, Sho apologizes and welcomes her back. He tells her that she could have at least told them when she was coming home. Mashiro asks if the two of them are going out and Sesu says yes brightly. Mashiro asks where they were heading off to. Sho wonders if she would want to come along as well. Even from his perspective as her family, Mashiro was quite beautiful, but she was free-spirited and outrageous. She was just as eccentric as Sesu, so he was a bit worried about bringing her along. Sesu says that Sho was going to meet up with a girl and Mashiro exclaims in shock. Sho starts to sweat nervously as Sesu had put things so misleadingly. Mashiro announces that she would accompany them as well and Sho is left defeated. Walking around town, Mashiro hums thoughtfully. Sesu had told her about IRO. She says that tons of people at her dorm were playing it too. Mashiro comments that Mion didn't seem like that cooperative type. Sho asks if she was even allowed to play games in the dorm and Mashiro laughs. She says that there would be no way online games would be banned these days, adding that it wasn't like they were part of the military or something similar. There's no doubt students would be petitioning against a decision like that anyway. Mashiro says that a friend of hers had invited her but she didn't quite understand it. She asks Sesu to explain it to her when they get back and she agrees. They arrive at the destination and Mashiro smiles mischievously at the idea of meeting Sho's girlfriend. Sho frowns nervously, wondering what kind of explanation Sesu gave her. Seeing a girl leaning by a street lamp, Mashiro asks if that was her. Sho thinks it was Mion and calls out to her. A gust of wind passes by and tussles Mion's hair, her dress swaying with the breeze. She pushes her hair back. She looks up to see Sho. She politely bows to see Sesu and Mashiro. Mashiro introduces herself. However, when they turn to Sho, he's completely struck silent. They call out to him and he blinks. Realizing his mistake, he quickly greets Mion a good morning. Although it comes out too strongly, he laughs awkwardly, saying that she looked quite different from how she did at school. Mashiro jokes and says that he might as well admit that he was completely captivated by her, making Sho flinch. He tries to defend himself, but Mashiro tells him not to be shy. She steps forward and pressing Mion close to her, she teases Sho and says that she was too cute for him. Mion is taken by surprise and her face flushes as she's pressed to Mashiro's chest. Sho immediately pulls her back, saying that she was scaring Mion. Mashiro smiles, half-heartedly apologizing. Catching their attention, Mion asks them to get into the car. Sho and Mashiro stare in shock as Mion points to a limousine. Oh my gosh, she's loaded, isn't she? They share a look, thinking the car is too big. Sesu happily calls out to them to get in quickly and all four of them file into the car. Mashiro turns to Sho and whispers to him that it felt too awkward. Sho whispers back for her not to show it on her face. The driver calls out to Mion, calling her miss and asking if everything was alright. Mion reassures the driver, but Sho and Mashiro flinch at the title. Mashiro kicks Sho's leg, whispering to him that he hit the jackpot. Sho whispers back not to say such weird things. Their limousine drives off. Eventually they arrive at a high-rise condominium which was Mion's residence. The woman at the lobby bows respectfully and welcomes Mion back. She thanks Sho and Sesu for coming before asking for Mashiro's name. She gracefully introduces herself as the eldest daughter, apologizing for visiting so suddenly. Sho frowns at her for introducing herself so properly. The woman guides them to the elevators. They ride it up and upon reaching a certain floor she knocks at a set of doors, announcing Mion and the Ise siblings' arrival. They shuffle in and hear a voice nervously say that they were preparing some tea. As the group sits at the table, Sho watches as a woman apologizes for tea taking a bit too long.